We'll have full coverage for you right here. You won't have to go anywhere. We do appreciate everyone joining us, as always, worldwide for you right here on News Now from Fox. Everyone joining us on YouTube there as well. You're taking a live look, everybody, of what should have been in Milwaukee, where the convention was taking place, but then COVID-19 happened, and really everything in your life, in your way of life, in your country, in your just everyday thinking has gone out the window in 2020 because of this COVID-19 pandemic. Hi, everyone. Mike Pace here. Thank you so much for joining us here today on special coverage on Fox News Now, right here, as we continue to always bring you the very latest. And today, well, in about 45 minutes, we are expecting the day one of the Democratic National Convention to take place with a keynote speaker tonight of Michelle Obama. And this is really going to be the Democrats' chance to put their party's platform once again onto the national stage and really try to get momentum. Now, this momentum will be much different because, well, it's a virtual event. So how weird is that going to be? The first time you have a virtual event, you figure there's not going to be the big ball drop. There's not going to be the balloons coming down on Joe Biden. It's not even going to be maybe a live event for Joe Biden. A lot of these segments have been taped. We know Michelle Obama, her speech tonight is taped. So a lot of these speeches already in the can. They are ready to go here, and we will see how it just all unfolds in the 4 days taking place there in Milwaukee. And then, oh yeah, the next week we do have the RNC, which will also be a virtual event as well. Let's show you right now a live look there in Milwaukee, what should have been the Democratic National Convention site. Now it's all virtual. We appreciate everyone joining us here today. I got some news to read here all about the Democrats.
Well, Jill is best at helping me.
And I'll give you a little bit of information here, as the Democratic National Committee Chair Tom Perez said today that the handful of 2020 presidential caucuses should be the last the party ever holds. He didn't specifically name Iowa, which for decades has led off the nominating calendar, but his position would represent a really big shift in the party's traditions. Perez's term as chair will end before the 2024 nominating calendar is determined, but he told the Associated Press on the opening day of the Democratic National Convention that he plans to use the bully pulpit as a former chair to make sure we continue the progress of changes after the bitter 2016 primary fight between nominee Hillary Clinton and runner-up Bernie Sanders. Among the changes was to push states toward primaries and at least require the remaining caucus states like Iowa to create a paper ballot system. The Iowa caucuses were chaotic this year, with state and national party officials spending days to try to determine the winner. Iowa's first in the nation caucuses, as well as the New Hampshire's status as the first primary state a week later, are further threatened in the Democratic pecking order because the states are overwhelmingly white, while the national party is much more diverse. That gap was underscored this year when the eventual nominee Joe Biden finished fourth in Iowa and fifth in New Hampshire, only to dominate the nominating fight over the ensuing months once more diverse states voted. Perez wouldn't comment on whether he thinks Iowa or New Hampshire should give up or share their leadoff spots, but he said the demographics will undoubtedly come up in future party discussions here. And really, when you think about it as a whole right now, Joe Biden came with momentum later in that process there, as there was a time in the caucuses and in the primaries. A lot of people are thinking, okay, is he going to be shut down before even trying to get a nomination here? Some other news that I want to bring to you. Despite polls showing that the former Vice President Joe Biden consistently leading President Trump, the presumptive Democratic nominee is not taking anything for granted, according to the former White House Chief of Staff, John Podesta. Podesta, who also chaired Hillary Clinton's unsuccessful 2016 White House bid, told Your World today that while Biden is running like every day is election day, but the coronavirus pandemic has upended the optics. He said, you know, they could stumble and lose this thing. They are going to do everything they can to win the race. We learned the hard way. You have to do that, he said. We did that in 2016, and we still got upended right at the end as a result of a little bit of interference by Russians. That is according to John Podesta there. And host Neil Cavuto then pressed Podesta on that point, noting that the Republican Thomas Dewey sat on a large lead over President Harry Truman in 1948 and ended up losing that race in a historic upset. I don't think you can ever risk sitting out, Podesta responded. You have to get out and aggressively campaign, and I think he is doing that. He is doing it in a new way because that COVID crisis has required that. But we've been saying this on NewsNOW from Fox since last week, since he picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate. He hasn't had taken any media questions. It's just been him doing some remarks, and then when it's time for the media, it's nothing. And then on Friday, we saw that event of him signing paperwork in Delaware. It was a 50-second video opportunity for Biden and Kamala, but there was no questions. As soon as the media came in with the videos, they tried to ask questions, and they got hushed down. They got rushed out. So if John Podesta is thinking that he's out there campaigning right now, I mean, it's a real big difference, because he's doing a lot of these satellite and Zoom interviews just from his place right here in Delaware. So will be interesting to see how it all plays out as we are less than, of course, 80 days away from the election. You're watching NewsNOW from Fox, and we're about 40 minutes away right now from the first day of the Democratic National Convention. It'll be much, much, much different, but we will bring it to you right here on NewsNOW from Fox. While we are waiting for the event to start, I want to take you out to Milwaukee, and this was the Milwaukee mayor and police talking about security during the convention.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, and I'm pleased to be joined today by some of our very, very important partners who have been critical in helping us get to the point where we are today. Standing beside me or behind me include Chief Brunson, our police chief, and members of the Milwaukee Police Department, Rob Pacey from the Secret Service, Jeremy Sheridan, who's the Director of Investigations for the Secret Service, and Commissioner Jeanette Kowalik from our Department of Health. It was approximately 17 months ago that we received the call from Tom Perez that Milwaukee had been chosen to host the 2020 Democratic National Convention. This was the first time in the history of this state that our city or our state was chosen to host a major political party convention. And it meant a lot of preparation, and it meant making new partnerships and forging new relationships that we had never had before here in the city of Milwaukee. Now, with the excitement of the first day of the convention, I'm also reflecting on the journey that has led us up to this day. We all recognize that this is not the conventional convention that we had all anticipated. With the pandemic outbreak, our lives have been changed fundamentally, hopefully temporarily, and not forever, but they certainly have been disrupted over the past 6 months. They've been disrupted in a way that I don't think any of us ever foresaw. But throughout this entire process, there has been a partnership. There has been a partnership among law enforcement, both from the federal level and the local level, our health department, health experts nationally and at the state as well as our administration and all of the individuals who work for the city of Milwaukee who put so much work into preparing for this convention. But today we want to highlight the incredible and unique partnership that was forged among law enforcement. And the reason we want to do that is because we know how critical law enforcement is to having a safe convention. As many of you may know, since 2004, the host cities, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, have been appropriated up to $50 million by the United States Congress for security needs. That is because this is a national special security event. And even with the virtual changes that we have seen, it is still important for us to maintain the security for the residents, for the visitors, and for everyone who's involved in this convention. I especially want to thank the Secret Service for their partnership. Like 99.9% of all Americans, I didn't have a lot of interplay with the Secret Service until this came to our city. And I have to tell you, I was struck by the incredible professionalism, the diligence, and just the ease with which they worked with us and how quickly they got to know the city. I can honestly say I can't think of a group of individuals who got to know how to pronounce names of streets more quickly than the members of the Secret Service. They truly immersed themselves in the community, and literally by business, they were able to identify key stakeholders as we determined how our initial security perimeter would be formed. And as we all know, when we were anticipating 50,000 people and over $200 million in spending, the security perimeter was going to be much larger than it is today. And it was amazing to watch them interact with local businesses, listen to local businesses, work with local businesses, work with local stakeholders to make sure that they were doing two things. One, maximizing the security for the residents and visitors to our community. And two, and equally important, maintaining as much life as normal for businesses and individuals who lived in this area. Rob Paskey has been a wonderful leader, and the team has done a first-class job of preparing us to host the 2020 Democratic National Convention. Rob and his team have worked with us to keep convention attendees and residents alike safe. As I mentioned, they've created the convention's security perimeter, planned ahead to account for emergencies due to weather or human interference, and helped us secure the federal funding necessary to carry out our safety plans. Now, it hasn't always been easy for me because almost by definition, their job is to identify potentially anything that could ever go wrong. And as a mayor, you don't like hearing this over and over and over again, but I understand that that was just a sign of their professionalism because they've worked tirelessly to ensure the security plan provides, as I said earlier, the maximum amount of security for the convention, while also providing a minimal amount of impact for our city. They have been immensely respectful of our community, and it's been a pleasure to have them here in the city of Milwaukee. So on behalf of the city of Milwaukee, with 3 days left to go in this convention, I want to thank you again for your service and your professionalism. But they didn't do it alone. Again, this was about partnerships. And our Milwaukee Police Department stepped up and worked closely with, again, all stakeholders locally, with other police departments around the state, and at a time when we thought it was going to be a much larger footprint with police departments around the country. So I also want to thank our Milwaukee Police Department and Chief Brunson in particular, who was critical to the preparation to get us to where we are today. The men and women of the Milwaukee Police Department have been preparing for the convention with us since the very beginning, working on safety plans and securing the necessary safety equipment to make this week a success. As we prepared the budget for this, there was a lot of work that went into that, and we worked closely with the Department of Justice because all of these major purchases, in effect, had to be approved by the Department of Justice. Just as to be reimbursed, we're going to have to document the spending to let them know that we did this in the right way. But the police officers are on the ground now and throughout the rest of the week, working long hours to help maintain the security perimeter to ensure that the scheduled events go smoothly. I also want to call out the Milwaukee Fire Department, which every step along the way, both in the COVID-19 pandemic as well as preparation for this, has been there as a strong partner with my administration and with the city of Milwaukee to make sure that we're doing testing, making sure that we've got enough equipment for the fire department, and working with other departments like the Department of Public Works and the Department of Neighborhood Services, all of which coordinate, of course, with our health department. So you can see that this has been a team effort, and it's been a team effort, and although what we are now hosting is not what we had all hoped to host, we are still going to provide the most professional service, not only to our residents, but to the visitors of our city. Everyone has worked so incredibly hard, and I'm so proud of every one of them, and I'm honored to work alongside them. Without the support of our partners, we would not have been able to host this convention and take part in making history. You have truly put Milwaukee and Wisconsin on the global stage. And with that, I'd like to bring up Chief Brunson to talk a little bit about his role with the Milwaukee Police Department. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. This has been a long process. About a year and a half ago, we won the right to represent and host the DNC. And from that time period forward, it has involved a lot of planning, a lot of collaboration, a lot of changes, obviously. And right now, I just want to thank all of our partners that assisted us in getting to today. First, I'd like to thank the Secret Service, Rob Pacey, Dave Yamin, Carrie Dyer. They've been partners from the beginning, and others. And without their collaboration, without their attitudes, we couldn't be here today. Also, I'd like to thank our county partners, Sheriff Ernell Lucas, also State Patrol, many other entities, FEMA, the FBI, all part of that partnership, working together to bring something as great as the DNC to our city and to make it successful. Our number one goal is to maintain safety in our city, to have a safe event, to allow citizens to exercise their right to protest, but to do it in a safe manner. And so we are happy moving forward that the day is here. And as we embark and move forward through this convention, we're asking all of you who are here visiting our city to be safe and continue to represent this city well overall. We are committed to maintaining the safety of everyone in our city. And with the partnerships and with the plans that we have put together, we are confident that we're going to do that. So I'm going to have Rob Pacey come up and say a few words, and then we'll open it up for questions. I think the mayor is going to speak again, and then we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Chief Brunson, thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for the kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, again, as we start here on day one of the convention, we just want everyone to know that we would not be in the position that we're in today if it not were for the tremendous teamwork and partnership that we have enjoyed over these last 14 months from our federal, our state, our county, Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, and our local public safety departments, Milwaukee Police Department, Milwaukee Fire Department, and of course, Mr. Mayor, your office. Cannot even begin to go any further than to want to recognize Dr. Kowalik and the guidance that we have received. Ma'am, thank you so much for your help. You sat on our Medical and Health Subcommittee, and again, we cannot thank you enough for all of your work that you've done. Ladies and gentlemen, we started this more than 14 months ago. This is a national special security event. It remains a national special security event. Regardless of scaling back, regardless of changes, that does not mean the Secret Service is going to scale back or walk away from any of the responsibilities that it has to a national special security event or to the city of Milwaukee. We're here to do a job. We're here to do that through careful planning and teamwork. And again, that would not be possible had it not been for the Milwaukee Police Department, Chief Brunson's office, Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office with Sheriff Lucas, the Milwaukee Fire Department, our County Health Department. We have some federal partners up here as well. FEMA is represented. Again, it's been a collaborative effort, and we're here today, again, on day one, just to thank everybody and recognize the fact that while it might not be what everyone was expecting, nonetheless, the plan has been implemented, and it has always been from day one, maximum amount of protection to the venue with a minimal amount of impact to the citizens of Milwaukee. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Appreciate everything. Sir.
Virtually, a virtual thanks. Thank you again, Rob. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, there was concern by the Chief Brunson's predecessor that the National Guard might need to be looked into as police departments across the state started dropping off. Is the National Guard going to be a resource for the convention?
At this point, and again, I'll let the chief respond to that. It's my understanding that the Milwaukee Police Department, as well as the Secret Service and the Sheriff's Department, have been working together and feel confident that they'll be able to handle it. Chief, is there anything you want to add there?
You know, I think that was accurate as far as that's concerned. Obviously, with the scaled-back nature of the event, you know, we have enough, we believe, we have an operational plan to make everyone safe in our city.
So are we bringing in any, so we're not bringing in any officers from outside? I heard something about 1,000 officers coming in to assist you.
Again, that has been scaled back. As we saw the size of the convention be reduced, twice we resubmitted our plans to the Department of Justice. As I mentioned earlier, the appropriation that we received from the United States government called for us to get up to $50 million. But once it was announced that there would be no delegates coming to the convention, we were asked to resubmit a plan to the Department of Justice, which we did. And once we learned that there would be fewer speakers in attendance and that most of the speakers would be virtual, I didn't even wait to hear from the Department of Justice. I told our city departments to curtail the spending at that point. Within hours, we got a directive from the Department of Justice to resubmit another plan, which we did. So we've been working very, very closely with the Department of Justice, as well as with the Police Department and the Secret Service, to make sure that we are right-sizing this event.
So how many officers do you anticipate?
Again, I don't know that I'm going to let the professionals, if they want to, talk about that.
As indicated earlier, we're addressing the convention ourselves with some of our partners, but we don't want to get into the specifics of numbers or anything like that, so.
Are there other departments?
What's that?
Are there other departments here, though, that are helping out?
There are a few that are helping, mostly local.
Mr. Mayor, with the spending, as you mentioned, and you scale everything back, you still get reimbursed for all that.
That's right, but we know, and I know this from being a student of other conventions and watching this very, very carefully. The Department of Justice wants to ensure that all of the documentation is there. So one of the first things that we did when we were awarded this convention was to have that conversation with our different departments to say, look, this appropriation is there, but there are rules that we have to follow. So our Department of Purchasing, our Department of Administration were very, very involved in this, as was the Police Department, the Fire Department, the Health Department, to ensure that we're, as I describe it, dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's, because I've seen in other cities where they didn't do that and they didn't get the reimbursement. So I want to make sure we get the reimbursement, so we're doing everything we can to make sure we get that money.
Mr. Mayor, some business owners also want to see the convention come back. Obviously, like you mentioned, it's not looking like what was announced a year and some months ago. Is that a conversation that's happening, potentially bringing the convention back in the next 4 years?
Well, I'd like to bring the convention back in 2024. I'd like to bring the Republican National Convention. You can bring the Academy Awards. You can bring the NFL Draft. You can bring anything you want. We'll leave the lights on. But I think, in all seriousness, one of the things that has come out of this, and this is, again, dramatically different from what we had hoped it would be, but we showed we can hit Major League pitching. Because when we first started talking about submitting this bid, there were a lot of naysayers. There were a lot of naysayers who said, well, Milwaukee's not big enough, or Milwaukee can't handle this. And what we showed is, yeah, we can prepare for this. Now, obviously, there were events way beyond our control that came in and changed the final outcome. But I think that anybody who was here that was involved in the planning could see how professional we were and how we actually can handle an event of this magnitude. We knew we could because we've had events like the Harley-Davidson event that has over 100,000 people for years. But we had to demonstrate, I think, to a lot of people from around the nation that we would be ready for this. So, of course, I would love to do this again in 2024. I'd like it to have a little different ending, and that we would have 50,000 people here and $200 million in spending. But I'm also mindful of the fact that we won a very competitive competition to be awarded this. And some of it was the work we went into it. Some of it was the money we raised, both directly and through the letter of credit. That was an important part of it. Some of it was securing the hotel rooms. Some of it was getting the venues and restaurants and other locations. So a lot of work went into this. And I think everybody, not only the people standing behind me, but the people in our business community, people in our labor community, people throughout the city should be proud that we won this bid. Now we've got work to do and to go back and win it again in 2024. Again, I'll let the experts talk about potential protesters. Gentlemen?
Yeah. So anytime that you have a national event, obviously, like the DNC, then that's always a possibility. And so our job is to make sure that we plan for those contingencies and to be prepared in case something like that happens. And so that's what we've done as far as protests. Obviously, we know that protests are going on around our country right now. And so it's wise and prudent for police agencies, obviously, to anticipate what could happen and to be prepared for it. And so that's what we've done.
Thank you guys very much for coming out today. If you have any other questions, please contact our Public Information Office. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We were listening to some of the city officials there talking about security and just how much it has changed since the plans right now of COVID-19 really dampered the conventions for both the Democrats and the Republicans. Thank you to everyone, as always, for always joining us here worldwide on NewsNOW as we are just now about 15 minutes away and we will tonight feature speeches from Michelle Obama, who is the keynote speaker, and Bernie Sanders, but there are other speakers today, and I'm just going to go down the list and tell you. Senator Amy Klobuchar will be speaking. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Representative Jim Clyburn, Convention Chairman Benny Thompson, Representative Gwen Moore, Senator Doug Jones, a performance by Maggie Rogers, a performance by Leon Bridges, performance by Billy Porter and Stephen Stills. And then, of course, we do have Senator Bernie Sanders, and we do have the former First Lady Michelle Obama, who will be the keynote speaker. That is all under the Day One umbrella. But let me tell you just who else we have during the week. Tomorrow, we will feature speakers like former Secretary of State John Kerry. We will hear from former President Bill Clinton tomorrow, and Dr. Jill Biden, that is Joe Biden's wife, will be the keynote speaker tomorrow. Then the keynote speaker for Wednesday will be former President Barack Obama, and right before that, Senator Kamala Harris, who is now the VP running mate choice for Joe Biden. And then Thursday, the big day for the Democrats, as it will be Vice President Joe Biden to be speaking at his convention and formally accept the nomination from the Democrats to be the official Democratic nominee for president of the United States here. Welcome to News Now from Fox. I am your host. We'll be guiding you throughout the evening here in prime time coverage, and we are streaming it worldwide to everybody here today. News Now from Fox. We always appreciate you joining us here today. And the next 2 weeks here, this week we have the Democrats. Next week we have the Republican convention. You're not going to miss a step with our coverage here, as we are going to bring you all of the speeches from the Democrats and the Republicans next week. You won't have to go anywhere. Let us be your source for everything national conventions right here on News Now from Fox. Welcome, everybody. We are just now 15 minutes away from the Democratic National Convention, and what I'll do is just read you just some more news stories here of the day, featuring, of course, what we are all here to watch and just see how it's all going to unfold. A very different convention by all standards. You're not going to have the big balloon drop on Thursday, Joe Biden. You're not going to have the thousands of attendants. You figure these things, they could pack about 15, sometimes 20,000 into these convention areas. Sometimes they're held at, basketball stadiums and big theaters, but very much different. Today we're going to have a lot of taped speeches. Some may be live, but probably for the most part, they will all be taped, and it'll just have a very different vibe going on than it did in so many past conventions. But again, this is not a normal year. We all know that. This is one of the most bizarre years. It's a surreal year, and of course, it's also at the same time, it's a very sad year because of what everything is happening here in this country. We're losing thousands of lives. It's just a bizarre year. People can't go home to visit their loved ones because there's cities and states that are still have these travel bans. I mean, it's a bizarre year, and we'll see how the Democrats this week address the pandemic and address everything going forward. I think a lot of people want to see what their plan is, what their vision is for America, and we'll see it all unfold on a national stage, on a national convention platform right here on News Now from Fox. So you won't have to go anywhere. We're gonna really feature it for you, of course, right here. The Democrats' convention, based with a production center in Milwaukee, will be held almost exclusively remotely, with delegates, officials, and speakers participating in a socially distant manner thanks to the coronavirus. To kick off the four-day event on Monday night, Democrats will get the results of some important votes, hold meetings for a variety of caucuses and councils, and see several high-profile speakers during the 9 Eastern to 11 p.m. Eastern prime time event. We are going to have some of the heavy hitters. We will have Michelle Obama today, Bernie Sanders today, tomorrow, Chuck Schumer speaking, also Bill Clinton tomorrow, Joe Biden tomorrow, Nancy Pelosi on Wednesday, Hillary Clinton on Wednesday, Barack Obama on Wednesday, Kamala Harris on Wednesday, and then Joe Biden to close it all out on Thursday and really give his speech to America in his theme and his outlook for Americans if he were selected to be the President of the United States. We are learning from our very own Chad Pergram, Fox News Capitol Hill, reporting that Democrats to begin their virtual convention tonight. Among the big speakers, Senator Bernie Sanders, and that is, of course, what we have been telling you all day today. Each night of the convention will include a theme, and today's will be called We the People, focusing on uniting the country amid the three major crises the U.S. is facing right now: the coronavirus pandemic, the resulting economic struggles, and the unrest over racial inequality. Cuomo and Whitmer are likely to speak on the pandemic, given their roles in their state's responses, while Bowser, according to ABC, will discuss the ongoing protest which put her city in the national spotlight earlier this year. Ahead of the main event each day, a smattering of caucuses and councils will be held for meetings for delegates and others. For Monday, the DNC's Labor Council, Black Caucus, Women's Caucus, Youth Council, and Ethnic Council, among others, holding their meetings all day today from about noon to 7 p.m. Eastern, they did. And what the Trump campaign and President Trump is doing is much different. The Trump campaign will be introducing its own counter-programming beginning at 11 p.m. when the convention ends each night, which it says will highlight the radical socialism for the left. Fox News reported this yesterday. A Trump campaign official told Fox News on Sunday that the campaign is in response to nightly Democratic convention programming will launch The Real Joe Biden, a recap of the Democrats' nightly events. Trump himself will also be on the road speaking in swing states during the Democratic convention. Today we saw him in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and tomorrow he is going to be in Arizona, so we will have full coverage of that for you starting tomorrow as well. 9 minutes away from starting where the Democratic National Convention, a very different convention taking place today. We'll see it all happen on night one, a 2-hour prime time event. We got you covered right here on News Now from Fox, showcasing all of the Democratic National Convention, and then we invite you to watch next week with us as we will showcase the Republican National Convention, another virtual event that will be, but I'm thinking that President Trump will not have a taped speech come next week. It will be, in fact, live, and we're wondering if it will take place at the White House. So this week, it's all about the Democrats. How can they portray their message to the American people? How many times does everybody at home and that is watching this around the world as well, do you have your Democratic National bingo cards? You know they're out there, and I'm sure, you know, you got to put one for how many times they bring up the coronavirus, how many times they bring up civil unrest, how many times they bring up the word Trump. So yeah, I think those bingo cards will be probably filled out after the first speaker, but we'll showcase it all here for you on News Now from Fox as we bring you this very special programming in a very different National Convention, starting off with the Democrats. Thank you to all our viewers from around the world as we get going here in about 7 minutes. What I will do now is also just do a little bit more updates here. Now, so many people thought, what about the bounces? Usually after a convention, there would be a bounce for each party. If you want a good measure of how out of whack the perceptions of political America are about actual America, look no further than the discussion about the cancellation of this year's nominating conventions. It has the same speaking parts as, and this is from a Fox News halftime report, and we just wanted to read some of, well, how this convention will all take place here. And tonight will mark the official transition of Joe Biden from the party's presumptive nominee to its official presidential candidate, whose name will show up on the ballots next to President Trump and will provide the party with 4 nights of programming to rally its base and persuade swing voters to join their cause. The party conventions held every 4 years have had their plans for this year blown up by the coronavirus pandemic and have had to adjust on how they'll take care of their business. They will still have a footprint in their host cities, but won't bring together the normal crowds of tens of thousands of supporters to inject millions of dollars into the local economy. Here's what you need to know about the 2020 Democratic National Convention as it being held in the age of the coronavirus. The Democratic Convention was originally slated to happen in Milwaukee, and that's the live shot that we're looking at right now. Due to the pandemic, however, the party has moved almost the entire convention to be virtual as it plans a convention across America that will include all 57 states and territories in its programming. In Milwaukee, the convention will have its production centered at the Wisconsin Center, a convention center in the city. Meanwhile, delegates and speakers will stay home virtually and sending in their votes and giving their addresses. And it looks like part of the coverage is starting. Let's go with it right here on News Now from Fox.
Always worked for the best of who we are as a nation.
We will elect Joe Biden as the next president of the United States.
I'm on Team Joe. I'm riding with Biden.
I am so proud to be on Joe's team because.
All right, so they were just playing some video ahead of that, but we're being told that they were just making sure everything was going to be playing out, and I'm guessing that is what the intro is going to look like. To coordinate the massive media production involving 2 hours of programming for 4 consecutive nights, the DNC is tapping Ricky Kirschner, a 9-time Emmy winner who has been the executive producer of the Tony Awards and the Super Bowl for more than a decade each. Kirschner is a DNC regular, having worked on every convention since 1992. Biden will not travel to Milwaukee due to the coronavirus concerns and instead will deliver his acceptance speech from Delaware, his home state. Biden's running mate, California Senator Kamala Harris, will also speak from Delaware. From the very beginning of this pandemic, we put the health and safety of the American people first. We followed the science, listened to doctors and public health experts, and we continued making adjustments to our plans in order to protect lives. And here is a live look right now in Milwaukee as we are just moments away from this convention to get going. We will have keynote address today from Michelle Obama, also speaking, Senator Bernie Sanders. You're going to have Governor Andrew Cuomo speaking, all in these jam-packed 2 hours that we will feature for you right here on News Now from Fox, and will be your really convention headquarters here for the next 4 days for the Democrats, and then next week we have the Republicans lined up. A very different convention, to say the least. It's a really different life and world we're all living in this coronavirus world, but the election must go on, and, well, the convention must go on, but it's going to be a virtual one for the most part. Trump on the GOP side also will not travel for his convention next week to either Charlotte, North Carolina, where official convention business will happen, or to Jacksonville, Florida, where Republicans had planned to move their convention before coronavirus numbers spiked there. He told the New York Post that he will probably give his speech from the White House after he had floated Gettysburg National Military Park as a potential location. Perhaps in an effort to reflect Biden's affable, everyman public persona, the Democratic National Convention speakers lineup will include several everyday Americans meant to represent a cross-section of the country. Democratic Party officials announced today that these people, including a teacher with a class of bilingual students in Wisconsin, a paramedic who emigrated from Mexico and is now on the front lines in Florida in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, and more, will showcase presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's message on combating the coronavirus, stemming gun violence, healthcare, and his opposition to Trump. Outside of the everyday Americans, the DNC will bring in 4 nights of headliners to speak during its 2-hour programming window. In addition, each night will showcase a particular theme aimed at highlighting Biden's strengths and Trump's weaknesses. Monday, today, will be called We the People. Tomorrow will be Leadership Matters. Wednesday will be a more perfect union, and on Thursday, to close it out, when Joe Biden will be speaking, it will be called America's Promise. Today, we can expect Bernie Sanders, Catherine Cortez Masto, Andrew Cuomo, Gretchen Whitmer, Jim Clyburn, Gwen Moore, John Kasich, Doug Jones, Amy Klobuchar, and then Michelle Obama. And it's interesting with John Kasich because, well, he was the former governor of Ohio. He's also a Republican, and he is talking at the Democratic National Convention. Looks like it's getting going. Let's bring it to you right here on News Now from Fox.
Our democracy. This year, we've come to save it. It's going to take all of us. So tonight we stand together, united by the values we cherish: decency, respect, justice, and the opportunity to rise up. We always hear that line about this being the most important election of our lifetimes, but this year, it really is. The past few months have tested us all. We've lost more than 170,000 family members and friends to COVID. This tragedy is compounded by the loss of jobs and income. But it's not just the past few months. The past 4 years have left us as a nation diminished and divided. And yet, in the middle of the fear and sorrow and the uncertainty, people have come together because they know we are better than this. America is better than this. And so we choose to act, inspired by the 3 sacred words that breathed life into our nation: we the people.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, let's go.
Come on now.
Okay, we ready?
I think I learned this in middle school.
Or 5th grade.
Can I say this in Spanish?
So should I read just this line or the whole thing?
Justice.
Tranquility.
Liberty.
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 Let's do this.
We the people.
We the people.
We the people.
Nosotros. We the people.
We the people.
We the people of the United States.
De los Estados Unidos.
In order to form a more perfect union.
Establish justice.
Ensure domestic tranquility.
Provide for the common defense.
Promote the general welfare.
And secure the blessings of liberty
To ourselves
and our posterity.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
We the people.
We the people.
We the people.
We the people. We the people.
We the people.
We the people of the United States.
We the people call the 48th Quadrennial Democratic National Convention to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, my name is Reverend Gabriel Salguero. Let us pray. Almighty God, we confess that our nation needs you and has always needed you. We pray for your blessing upon all of us, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. As we strive to form a more perfect union, we pray for your strength, guidance, and wisdom. Lord, we recognize that we are living in challenging times that call us to live up to the highest angels of our national character. As we confront the turbulent winds of a global pandemic, economic uncertainty, and civil discord, may your gracious hand lead us to the peaceful shores of love, justice, and civility. Help us, O Lord, to be ever mindful of the most vulnerable among us, from our golden generation to our youngest children, desde nuestros inmigrantes to our veterans, from our healthcare workers to our school teachers. Give us a heart of compassion and grace. This nation, from Miami to Minneapolis and from Portland to El Paso, ask you to shepherd us to a hope-filled vision that does justice, ama la misericordia, and walks humbly before you. I pray this in the matchless name of Jesus. Amen.
Welcome to our convention across America. We had hoped to gather in one place, but instead we figured out a safe and responsible way to come together to share our ideas and talk about the future of our country. And that's the kind of leadership we need right now. That's the kind of leadership that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will bring to the White House. So during the next 4 nights, we will gather safely from our homes to listen, to learn, to be inspired, to act, to vote, and to build that more perfect union. I am honored to be with you this evening. I'm here tonight as a 9th-generation Texan, as a daughter of a veteran and a teacher, as a mother, as a voter, and as a patriot. I share Joe Biden's belief that the story of America is one of ordinary people coming together to do extraordinary things. And at our best, our country rewards hard work. We celebrate diversity. We look out for each other, and we lift one another up. So tonight, we're going to begin with the simple kindness we've been extending to each other a lot lately. We're going to check in with folks around the country and ask, how are you doing? As many of you know, small businesses employ half of all U.S. workers. Tonight we have Scott. Scott, you are a small business owner from Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. Small businesses have been hit so hard in this crisis, so many small businesses. How are you doing? How are you managing?
Well, you know, it's been rough. Rough is a nice word to say it. My wife and I, 31 years ago, began our business, and quite honestly, over all these years, we faced some adversity and challenges, but to be honest, nothing like we are today. We've literally had to reinvent our business several times since the beginning of the year, just to stay afloat. And you know, our revenue, for example, is off about 40%. We have half of the employees that we had pre-COVID, and you know, our customers are a little scared. Our employees are sometimes afraid to come to work because of the COVID. And to be honest with you, I'm just frustrated. I don't understand how we got here. We are the greatest nation in the world, and it just seems to me that, you know, maybe if we just came together on this one issue alone, maybe as Americans and being united, we can overcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott, for sharing your story. I'm sure many small business owners feel the same way that you're feeling now. We wish you the best for your business and, of course, for your family. Now I'd like to turn to Marley Diaz, who is 15 years old from West Orange, New Jersey. She is a literary activist and author, and she is the founder of 1,000 Black Girl Books. Marley, so many young people are struggling with the changes due to COVID. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, I feel better every day. I feel more hopeful. I thought this was going to be a few weeks at first where I wouldn't see my friends and I would just stick it out. But obviously, as it's grown longer, I really want to focus on activism and still spreading important messages given the fact that I can't go out. So I started doing virtual read-alouds online, which has been so fun, getting to interact and meet new kids and encourage and promote the joy that we can find in reading and in learning. It's also super fun to see teenagers like me going on social media and talking about social issues and injustices that they care about, because sometimes you don't have that space in school. So I hope that a year from now, when we get to go back and be safe and be protected, that we will still have these conversations and still have a new possibility in a new world.
Yes, thank you so much, Marley. You're such an inspiration. I don't think I was doing half of what you're doing at 15, and I love seeing how brave and creative your generation is to creating change. So thank you. Thank you so much for your work. Let's check in with Rick. Rick, you are a farmer from Volant, Pennsylvania. Your farm has been in your family for generations. What have the trade wars and the pandemic done to your family's life work?
Well, first of all, I'd like to offer the Trump family our condolences for his loss. Getting back to the business side of it, the trade war was it was a real stressful and truly a devastating effect on a farm. Most probably what people can relate to mostly in agriculture is soybean tariffs. And then whenever you compound the effects of the COVID-19 virus, nobody could have prevented that. It's a shame our leadership misinformed the people like myself and the country on what was coming down the road. My biggest concern is that if these trends continue with this type of leadership, I will be the last generation farming this farm.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, and I'm sure a lot of farmers feel the same way.
I don't have the answers, but past experiences, if something doesn't work for you, it's time for a change. And that's why I'm supporting Joe Biden all the way.
Well, thank you so much. Rick, I couldn't agree with you more. We need meaningful change and leadership that will support family farms like yours. So we wish you the best. Thank you for sharing your story. Finally, let's hear from Michelle from my home state of Texas. Michelle, you are a school nurse and a mother in El Paso. How are you preparing for the new school year?
Hi, Eva. Well, we've already started school, but it is a little challenging because every day something seems to change. We start one way one day and we have to change it the next day. And I know that right now it's kind of sad not to see the kiddos when we're back, but I know that that will change. We're going to have to adapt and persevere. But honestly, right now, all I can think about is keeping my kiddos safe. I know back in March, we had them at home and we were doing okay, but now they're wanting us to take them back to school. And it's a little scary with all the uprise and COVID cases. And so I just want to say that I am committed to take care of my family, my students, and all my staff at my school. I will do whatever it takes to ensure that we are all ready to go back to school safe and healthy. And I know that I am optimistic to move forward with our life, and Joe Biden will be the one to take us there. I just want to say for everyone to please remember to wash their hands and wear their mask, because we're all in this together.
Thank you, Michelle. I think there's nothing more difficult for us as moms than to see our children suffer. And so I think you're doing a great job of guiding them through this very difficult time. And thank you for the work you do as a nurse. It's truly heroic. I really enjoyed talking to all of you. I think I have one last question. Do you believe that change is coming? Do you believe that better days are ahead?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak with us and sharing your thoughts. You are the we in We the People, and you are who this convention is about.
In 1776, the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident. These words are the basis for the American creed: equality, equity, fairness, decency. America didn't live up to that promise for most of the people at the time, the people of color, for women, but we were born of an idea that every single solitary person, given half a chance, no matter where they're from, given half a chance, there's not a single thing they cannot do if they work at it. Nothing's beyond their capacity.
We had hoped to have our convention in the City of Festivals, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this year. Of course, we're not able to do that, but we'll be hearing from several of Wisconsin's leaders throughout this convention, starting with Congresswoman Gwen Moore.
Hi, I'm Gwen Moore, and it's my honor to represent Milwaukee in Congress and to kick off the 2020 Democratic Convention. Oh, I sure wish you all were here in the city of Milwaukee, which takes its name from the languages of the first peoples, interpreted as good land and gathering place by the waters. This is a city where blood was shed for labor rights, where a fugitive slave was freed from prison, where women's right to vote was first ratified. But today, we gather virtually. However, we gather unified in spirit, unified in our values and purpose to heal divisions and together move the nation confidently into a prosperous, inclusive future. Oh, what better way to gather than all across America to nominate my beloved friend, Joe Biden, to be 46th President of the United States of America, with my VIP, VP nominee, Sister Kamala Harris by his side. Tonight, we are gathered to reclaim the soul of America. So if you're ready to come together, America, text JOIN to 30330. Thank you, I love you all, and God bless you.
Can't see nothing in front of me. Can't see nothing coming up behind. Make my way through this darkness. I can't feel nothing but this chain that binds me. Lost track of how far I've gone, how high I've climbed. On my back's a 60-pound stone, on my shoulder half-mile line. Come on up for the horizon, come on up and lay your hands in mine. Come on up for the horizon. Come on up for the horizon tonight. Left the house this morning, bells are ringing, filled the air. I was wearing the cross of my calling, on wheels of fire, I can roll down here. Come on up for the horizon. Come on up and lay your hands in mine. Come on up for the horizon. Come on up for the horizon tonight. La 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 spirits above and behind me. Faces gone like ice, burning bright. May the precious blood find me. For as I stand before your fiery I see Mary in the garden.
We have to let them know who we are, what we stand for. We choose hope over fear, truth over lies, and yes, unity over division. It's time for us to lift our heads up, open our hearts, remember who we are. We are the United States of America. I mean it. There's not a single thing we cannot do if we do it together.
idea of us calling ourselves the United States of America feels like it's pretty wrong right now. I'm fairly ashamed to say it, but I'm one of many who voted for the current president, Donald Trump. I challenge you to think back to what made you vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I know I sure have, and I've registered as a Democrat for the first time in my life. I'm doing that because I think this election is bigger than any political party. What I think, in light of current events, if nothing else, we need more than anything is a proven leader. Donald Trump's rhetoric it's divisive, it's dangerous. It's also really difficult to vote for someone who essentially has zero platform right now, 4 months out from the election. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has a very detailed plan. Things like unity, education, climate preservation, racial inequality, and even healthcare. We have a chance right now to look ourselves in the mirror and go vote for a proven leader with a history of caring about others and truly putting all Americans first.
Our nation is facing a lot right now, and over the next 4 nights, we're going to cover it all. But tonight, we're going to talk about 3 specific crises we face: the pandemic, an economic downturn, and an ongoing systemic racial injustice. But we're not just going to focus on what's wrong, we're going to talk about how to make it right. When peaceful protesters were tear-gassed across from the White House, our next speaker stood up, stood strong, and turned that place into the Black Lives Matter Plaza in their honor. Please welcome Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Hello, I'm Muriel Bowser, Mayor of Washington, D.C. The story of our nation's capital is a story of reckoning. It was here that John Lewis and Dr. King spoke on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. It was here that millions of women and men flooded the streets for the Women's March. It was here that just weeks ago, Americans donned face masks and safely and peacefully protested the death of George Floyd. But while we were peacefully protesting, Donald Trump was plotting. He stood in front of one of our most treasured houses of worship and held a Bible for a photo op. He sent troops in camouflage into our streets. He sent tear gas into the air and federal helicopters, too. I knew if he did this to D.C., he would do it to your city or your town. And that's when I said enough. I said enough for every Black and brown American who has experienced injustice. Enough for every American who believes injustice. But I said enough for another reason, too. I have a 2-year-old daughter. And I want her to grow up in an America where she's not scared to walk to the store, an America where she's safe behind the doors of her own home, an America where the president doesn't fan the flames of racism and looks out for all of us. So I created Black Lives Matter Plaza right behind me as a place where we could come together to say enough. And by coming together this November to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we will say next. Because we can't just paint those words behind me. We can't just say those words. We have to live those words. We have to undo the laws and systems that have codified racism for far too long. But we have to do something too. Each and every one of us challenge our own biases. If we see something, do something. Together, we can turn this reckoning into a reimagining of a nation where we the people means all the people. There were a few people who stood on this very balcony as thousands of people peacefully protested in this city. One was our next vice president, my sister Kamala Harris. The others were members of George Floyd's family, who I'm honored to introduce now.
My brother George was selfless. He always made sacrifices for his family, friends, and even complete strangers. George had a giving spirit, a spirit that has shown up on streets around our nation and around the world. People of all races, all ages, all genders, all backgrounds, peacefully protesting in the name of love and unity. It's a fitting legacy for our brother, but George should be alive today. Breonna Taylor should be alive today. Ahmaud Arbery should be alive today. Eric Garner should be alive today. Stephon Clark, Tatiana Jefferson, Sandra Bland, they should all be alive today. So it's up to us to carry on the fight for justice. Our actions will be their legacies. We must always find ourselves in what John Lewis called good trouble. For the names we do not know, the faces we'll never see, those who can't mourn because their murders didn't go viral. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor George and the many other souls we lost to hate and injustice. And when this moment ends, let's make sure we never stop saying their names.
Hoping for a life more sweeter. Instead, I'm just a story repeating. Why do I feel skin dogs night? Can you feel peace with those judging eyes? Thought we moved on from the darker days. Did the words of the king disappear in the air like a butterfly? Somebody should hand you a felony. Cause you stole from me my chance to be. Hoping for a life more sweeter. Instead, I'm just a story repeating. Why do I feel skin dark as night? Can't feel peace with those judging eyes. My mother, rain, rain over me. My sisters and my brothers sang, sang over me. And I wish I had another day, but it's just another day. Hoping for a life more sweeter. Instead, I'm just a story repeating. Why do I feel skin dark tonight? Can't feel peace with those judging eyes. My mother, rain, rain over me. My sisters and my brothers sang, sang over me. And I wish I had another day, but it's just another day. Hoping for a life more sweeter.
Thank you, Leon Bridges, whose song Sweeter featured Terrace Martin, a song written after George Floyd's murder. You know, we have to ask ourselves, how do we, the people, take the protest and turn them into progress? How do we take the changes we're seeing in the hearts and minds of people and translate it into real and lasting change in people's lives? We need to address the economic inequalities that this virus has exposed and worsened, and we need to solve the testing and healthcare disparities that have led to people of color dying from COVID at higher rates than white people, and we need to make it easier for Americans to vote. We have a lot to do, and to do this, we need community action, we need Congress that can have power to do it, and we need a president who understands that this is the moment.
The moment has come for our nation to deal with systemic racism, to deal with the growing economic inequity that exists in our nation, to deal with the denial of the promise of this nation made to so many. You know, I've said from the outset of this election that we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. And we are in the battle for the soul of this nation. What we believe, and maybe most importantly, who we want to be, it's all at stake. That's truer today than it's ever been, at least in my lifetime. And it's this urgency, it's in this urgency we can find a path forward.
Hey, everybody, how are you? Thanks for doing
well,
this.
Mr. Vice President. Greetings.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jamira, tell the rest of the folks a little about your background.
I started doing activism when I was 15. It was at the intersection of knowing both the perpetrator and a victim. My brother Andre was shot and killed in Philadelphia, and it made me realize that I had a responsibility, almost a collective responsibility, to ensure that that didn't happen to other young people. And I think that's what's missing in America right now is our collective responsibility to each other, and to realize that the person down the street or around the corner or even across the country, that we have a responsibility to ensure that we're making sure that they're safe, they have access to education, and that in all, we're creating a world in which their differences are celebrated as well as protected under the law.
Mayor, how are you prioritizing the many things you have to do as we try to tackle in a way that we haven't before systemic racism in the city?
It really is about economic empowerment, because if people are lifted out of poverty and they are given an opportunity to feel a stake in their own future, that goes a long way. We're also challenging, all kinds of institutions, from corporations to community-based organizations, to think about what they can do better to end systemic racism and make sure that we're uplifting the quality of life in communities, but also the voices of people that traditionally don't have a seat at the table.
President's talking about defunding the post office and mail-in voting. I mean, what do you think we should be doing, Mr. President?
Well, first of all, we have to change the public discourse around voting. It should be seen as a democratic thing to do, the most patriotic thing we can do, and not a partisan exercise. Secondly, how do we open up access to voting so we could address some of the systemic problems? Not only should we reauthorize the Voting Rights Act, but we have to go further. Most importantly, voting should be seen as a constitutional right that's guaranteed, and with that level of sight that all citizens can be assured that they can have unfettered access without being suppressed.
This is a watershed moment, and we can't lose this moment. We have got to have action at the national level. We have got to have congressional action. We cannot have 18,000 police departments, and in 2020 have police departments still allowing the use of a knee on a man's neck in George Floyd. A lot of us were shocked, and I think what gives me hope is that police officers were shocked. Police officers have spoken out, and we're hopeful that we'll have some national standards as it relates to policing, use of force, a national database, abolishment of prohibition on a national standard in terms of chokeholds, and that we actually use the death of George Floyd and others to actually make policing take it to the next level, which is what everyone wants, including all the good cops that are out there, that thankfully are more of them than there are bad cops.
Most cops are good, but the fact is the bad ones have to be identified and prosecuted and out, period. Gwen, how are you doing?
Oh, well, I'm doing pretty well as can be expected.
I'm sure that
the words of George Floyd, "I can't breathe," were not new to you, and they echo in your mind every single day. And 6 years ago, when your son died. But we can't let this keep happening. What do you think the next thing we have to do, Gwen?
Well, first of all, I know when my son was murdered, there was a big uprising, but then it settled down. We can't let things settle down. We have to go to the politicians and we have to hold their feet to the fire, because otherwise the big uprising is not going to mean a lot. So I'm just asking that if you become the president, that you make sure that we get national law as well as state and local law, especially when it comes to police brutality, because that has been an age-old problem.
Well, I may be kidding myself, but I think the people are ready. I think people are ready. We just got to keep pushing. We can't let up. But thank you for what you're doing. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Racism structurally, individually, and systematically is real.
Black, brown, no matter what you look like, you should not ever be fearful of your life due to the color of your skin.
What I want to see in the next president of the United States is someone who's fair, who believes in equal justice under the law. I want him to lead us through this revolution that we're experiencing right now.
Joe Biden is a healer and he's a unifier. He will fight for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Undo, remove, tear down the remnants of structural and systematic racism in this country.
The systemic injustices that exist, things that our nation has overlooked, that need to be addressed.
And we need to stand on our platform and introduce legislation that makes this platform felt from coast to coast.
And I know that Joe Biden is the person to restore the values that we hold so near and dear to our hearts.
I have a 10-year-old son. I want to make sure that there is a world that's left better for him.
Good evening. I'm Congressman Jim Clyburn here in historic. Good evening. I'm Congressman Jim Clyburn here in historic Charleston, South Carolina. 6 months ago, I stood not far from here and endorsed Joe Biden to be our 46th president. It was a decision I made with my feet firmly planted in this community. This community, where 80% of African Americans in this country can claim an ancestor who arrived on these shores in bondage, a few blocks from here over at Gaston's Wharf. This community that is still healing from the wounds we received when the white supremacists entered Emmanuel AME Church and murdered 9 black parishioners as they studied the Bible together. The ground beneath our feet is seeded with pain that is both old and new. But from that soil, we always find a way to grow together. Earlier this summer, the city of Charleston removed a statue honoring John C. Calhoun, an honored advocate of slavery. And construction is underway on the International African American Museum at Gadsden's Wharf. Much like the country as a whole, we are stepping out from the shadows of our past and beginning to lay the groundwork for a more just future. It won't be easy. We can only succeed if we move forward together. So we will need a president who sees unifying people as a requirement of the job, a president who understands the true meaning of community and how to build it through trust and humility. And with so many families experiencing loss in this pandemic, lost jobs, lost loved ones, and lost confidence in the president to keep us safe, we need a president who understands both profound loss and what it takes to bounce back. But more important than his firsthand experience with loss and hardship is his ability to translate that perspective into policy and solutions, and prioritize hard-working people and persistent poverty counties over partisan politics or personal gain. That's why I stand with Joe And while he will always be an adopted son of South Carolina, Joe Biden is as good a man as he is a leader. I have said before and wish to reiterate tonight, we know Joe, but more importantly, Joe knows us.
I am Kevin. I do a lot of things in life, but the thing I'm most proud of is I am a TAPS military mentor, and that's how I spend the majority of my time, post-Marine Corps.
Building memories like the ones we build together is the single best thing I do with my time. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your lives and sharing the journeys for the past decade.
We've got about 500 kids and family members and mentors, and we're all packed into this very large ballroom. And all of a sudden, the back door opens up, and in walks Joe Biden. I had almost an out-of-body experience because he surprised us all. You know, I like to think I'm decent at reading people. From my time in the Marine Corps, my time as an intel officer, my time as a drill instructor, my time studying psychology. He was being real. I mean, you can't fake that kind of a smile. He was genuinely happy to see these kids and to spend time with them. It's easy to lose faith in humanity, especially today. There's a lot of polarization, leaves a lot of room for a lot of hope. And it's hard to articulate real character when you see it. You know, policies are great, and we need sound policies as well, which he also has those because he's got the chops, right? But it's almost like none of that matters if you don't have the character. This is a very unprecedented and challenging time that requires an unprecedented and courageous leader. We need someone with the courage to do what's necessary and what's right to strive towards that more perfect union. That's Joe Biden. I know Joe because he cares about everybody else before himself.
You know what else Joe knows? Joe knows about pandemics. In 2014, he helped stop the spread of Ebola and brought the world together to keep it contained. And after that success, knowing this would happen again, Vice President Biden and President Obama assembled a pandemic playbook to make sure that America was prepared and protected. The Trump administration disbanded the pandemic response team that was given to them. Americans have died and lost their livelihoods because of it. We, the people, deserve a president who believes in science, that recognizes the threat of COVID, who has a plan to get us through it. And that is Joe Biden. We're grateful that across the country there are responsible leaders who are stepping up. One of them provided clear direction and memorable PowerPoints, New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Hello. Today's Monday, day 170. New Yorkers were ground zero for the COVID virus and have gone from one of the highest infection rates on the globe to one of the lowest. We climbed the impossible mountain, and right now we are on the other side. We did it with the kindness and assistance of so many. New Yorkers want to thank everyone who came to our aid, 30,000 Americans who volunteered to come here to help in our hour of need. Your love gave us the strength to carry on. We went through hell, but we have learned much. We know that our problems go beyond the COVID virus. COVID is the symptom, not the illness. Our nation is in crisis, and in many ways, COVID is just a metaphor. A virus attacks when the body is weak and when it cannot defend itself. Over these past few years, America's body politic has been weakened. The divisions have been growing deeper, the anti-Semitism, the anti-Latino, the anti-immigrant fervor, the racism in Charlottesville, where the KKK didn't even bother to wear their hoods, and in Minnesota, where the life was squeezed from Mr. Floyd. Only a strong body can fight off the virus, and America's divisions weakened it. Donald Trump didn't create the initial division. The division created Trump. He only made it worse. Our collective strength is exercised through government. It is, in effect, our immune system. And our current federal government is dysfunctional and incompetent. It couldn't fight off the virus. In fact, it didn't even see it coming. The European virus infected the Northeast while the White House was still fixated on China. The virus had been attacking us for months before they even knew it was here. We saw the failure of a government that tried to deny the virus, then tried to ignore it, and then tried to politicize it. The failed federal government that watched New York get ambushed by their negligence and then watched New York suffer, but all through it learned absolutely nothing. So today, 6 months after it began, the nation is still unprepared. And we now face a second threat, but this time not from Mother Nature. This is a man-made threat by our own negligence. We now see the virus ricocheting across the country, from one state to another. Today, we trail the world in defeating COVID. We have over 5 million cases. Americans learned a critical lesson, how vulnerable we are when we are divided, and how many lives can be lost when our government is incompetent. But we learned something else, my friends. We saw the negative, but we also saw the positive. As they proved their way failed, we proved that our way succeeded. That America can still rise to the occasion. We can put our differences aside and find commonality. Government can tell the truth and can build trust. We can judge by content of character rather than color of skin. We can care for one another. That Americans can work together and forge community and a competent government. That, of course, we will wear masks because we are smart and because I care about you and because you care about me. Of course, we will socially distance because staying away shows how close we actually are. Yes, we will set up testing and tracing and do whatever we need to do to mobilize to win this battle because we are America. We win wars, and we are the greatest country on the globe. And for all the pain and all the tears, our way worked, and it was beautiful. We showed that our better angels are strong and that Americans will rise to their call. We saw that even at the end of the day, even if it is a long day, that love wins. Americans' eyes have been opened, and we have seen in this crisis the truth that government matters and leadership matters. And it determines whether we thrive and grow or whether we live or die. Now we need a leader as good as our people. A leader who appeals to the best within us, not the worst. A leader who can unify, not divide. A leader who can bring us up, not tear us down. I know that man. I've worked with that man. I've seen his talent. I've seen his strength. I've seen his pain, and I've seen his heart. That man is Joe Biden. Joe Biden is what I call America tough. Tough in the best way. Tough that is smart, united, disciplined, and loving. Joe Biden can restore the soul of America. And that's exactly what our country needs today. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Kristen Urquiza.
Hi, I'm Kristen Urquiza. I'm one of the many who has lost a loved one to COVID. My dad, Mark Anthony Urquiza, should be here today, but he isn't. He had faith in Donald Trump. He voted for him, listened to him, believed him and his mouthpieces when they said that coronavirus was under control and going to disappear, that it was okay to end social distancing rules before it was safe, and that if you had no underlying health conditions, you'd probably be fine. So in late May, after the stay-at-home order was lifted in Arizona, my dad went to a karaoke bar with his friends. A few weeks later, he was put on a ventilator. And after 5 agonizing days, he died alone in the ICU with a nurse holding his hand. My dad was a healthy 65-year-old. His only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump, and for that, he paid with his life. I am not alone. Once I told my story, a lot of people reached out to me to share theirs. They asked me to help them keep their communities safe, especially communities of color, which have been disproportionately affected. They asked me, a normal person, to help because Donald Trump won't. The coronavirus has made it clear that there are 2 Americas: the America that Donald Trump lives in and the America that my father died in. Enough is enough. Donald Trump may not have caused the coronavirus, but his dishonesty and his irresponsible actions made it so much worse. We need a leader who has a national, coordinated, data-driven response to stop this pandemic from claiming more lives and to safely reopen the country. We need a leader who will step in on day one and do his job, to care. One of the last things that my father said to me was that he felt betrayed by the likes of Donald Trump. And so when I cast my vote for Joe Biden, I will do it for my dad.
Thank you, Kristen, for sharing your story. Our nation grieves for your father and all those who we've lost to this virus. It's a toll that hasn't fallen equally on us. People of color have been disproportionately affected, dying at greater rates than white Americans, but we can honor all of those we've lost by giving Joe Biden and Kamala Harris the opportunity to put in place a real national plan that tests and tracks, that makes sure that access to a vaccine will be fair, and turns the full power of our government toward making sure we have the supplies and technology and people, scientists and public health officials and contact tracers. We need to stop this. So right now, let's hear from a champion for our frontline workers, who also happens to be an Olympic champion and a World Cup champion, Megan Rapinoe.
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Rapinoe, and I have the distinct honor today to host a conversation with 4 of our frontline workers here in America. We should rename them heroes, absolutely. Chung Lee, can you tell us a little bit about how you're doing during this time?
So early on, when the government was still trying to figure out proper protocols to protect frontline workers, I had unfortunately contracted COVID through patient contact and was isolated by myself for 2 weeks, so total isolation, no contact. Once I recovered, luckily, I went back to the front lines to continue to take care of the sick. And what got me originally was watching people die alone. There were no visitors allowed. Everyone was totally isolated, and I knew how that felt because for 2 weeks, that was me. Not knowing if you were gonna wake up, not knowing if you were gonna make it, who you were gonna talk to, if you can say goodbye. This was people's moms, dads, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, all dying alone. And we know there's a round 2 coming, and mentally, physically, emotionally, I don't know how many of us on the front lines are gonna survive that second round.
Dr. Bradley, what effects are you seeing inside your hospital doors of the inaction of the Trump administration when it comes to this COVID response?
It's heavy. I mean, I've left the emergency department in tears, and so have a lot of my colleagues. People are exhausted, and we're looking at the tsunami that's coming this winter with COVID and influenza. And I think all of us are wondering, how is our system not going to just collapse? Because if we're not there, when people come with their broken arms, or they come with their heart attacks and strokes or their appendicitis, we're not going to be there.
What were you seeing on the front lines in those very early days that you knew it wasn't going to magically disappear? Did you think it was a hoax then?
Oh, absolutely. We knew that this was not a hoax. We were certain of it. All of us knew from experience back in 2009 with the swine flu. We knew what a pandemic would look like. We knew that we needed to have the tools and the resources and the plans in place. But then we have the ineptitude and the lack of leadership from this administration. I've seen the worst of the worst. Not only have I answered thousands of calls of people that are sick, but people that are dying.
Michelle, tell us a little bit about how it's been for you on the front lines, what your specific role is.
As a union nurse, I've been primarily more in the forefront on advocating that our healthcare workers and our patients get the support and the PPE that they need. You know, 10 years ago, I responded to the disaster in Haiti. We were working in a tent hospital after the earthquake. But, you know, the first time that I ever feared for my life and my family's walking into work was in my own country We have the money, we have the means, we have the resources in this country. We are deeply lacking leadership and somebody who cares. Trump has made it perfectly clear how he feels. And we need a president who cares. That's Joe Biden.
Dr. Bradley Dreyfus, Aldo Martinez, Michelle Boyle, and Chung Lee, I can't thank you enough. The American people are forever indebted to you, to your work and your sacrifice and just you showing up every single day and giving everything you have. And thank you again for all of the work you do on the front line. There's no way we could ever repay you. So thank you very much.
Millions of people and veterans and senior citizens rely on the postal system for prescription medicines, for their checks.
Having the Postal Service deliver my prescriptions became even more comforting when the COVID-19 virus hit us here in the United States.
However, now, with Donald Trump in office and his attempts to undermine the United States Postal Service, we are extremely concerned.
This administration's decision not to provide the necessary funding to the United States Postal Service is appalling.
I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. Voting by mail is our only realistic option.
In no way do I want my 11 grandchildren to grow up in a world where this kind of suppression exists.
I'm Sarah Gideon, and I'm running to represent Maine in the U.S. Senate. Every day, I see the caring and resilient spirit that will get us through this crisis. Americans are looking out for one another. It's time we had leadership in Washington that did the same. With Joe Biden in the White House and a Democratic Senate, I know we can build back our economy and our communities even stronger. But tonight, I am here to welcome someone who has strong ties to our state and is here in Maine with me. She is reminding all of us to keep fighting through with her song that she's performing, Back in My Body. Please help me welcome someone who's an inspiration to all of us and one of my favorite artists, Maggie Rogers.
I was stopped in London when I felt it coming down, crashing all around me with a great triumphant sound, like the dam was breaking and my mind came rushing in. I was stopped in London, oh, I was awakening. I was over in Paris when I almost ran away, 2 times round the block before I decided to stay.
the COVID-19 pandemic hit, all I could think about were my students and their families.
All the suffering and pain and death that really didn't have to be this way.
If we had leadership in place that would have taken this pandemic seriously in the beginning, we would not be in the situation we are in now.
We still at this time don't have the necessary PPE.
And I am very worried about what is in front of us. We're going to have classrooms that maybe have not been sanitized properly because we don't have the money for that kind of equipment. We're going to have classrooms packed with students, and so the virus is going to be hard to contain. So this is very dangerous for the safety of our kids.
I hope that the new leadership takes American lives seriously.
I know Joe Biden understands that the only way to keep people safe and our economy strong is to follow the recommendations of doctors. And we're going to do everything we can to get Joe Biden elected.
Hello, America. I'm Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or as Donald Trump calls me, that woman from Michigan. Tonight I'm here at UAW Local 652 in Lansing, Michigan. Auto workers in this union and across our state could have lost their jobs if not for Barack Obama and Joe Biden. In 2009, the Obama-Biden administration inherited the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The auto industry on the brink of collapse, 1 million jobs at stake. But President Obama and Vice President Biden didn't waste time blaming anyone else or shirking their responsibility. They got to work. They brought together union members, companies, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, and they saved the auto industry. And wouldn't you know, just a few months ago, as our nation began battling COVID-19, auto workers across Michigan sprang into action. They started making protective equipment for doctors and nurses on the front lines. Let me break it down. President Obama and Vice President Biden saved these auto workers' livelihoods. Then these workers did their part to save American lives. That's the story of this great nation. Action begets action. Progress begets progress. And when we work together, we can accomplish anything. After all, democracy is a team sport, especially now. It's crucial that we rally together to fight this virus and build our economy back better. From the jump, we took this pandemic seriously in Michigan. We listened to medical experts. We planned. And with a lot of work from the auto workers and too little help from the White House, we executed our plan. We saved thousands of lives. Just imagine if we had a national strategy. So everyone who needs a test gets one for free. So everyone has access to a safe vaccine. So our kids and educators have the resources they need to safely get back to school. With Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House, we will. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will lead by example. It'll be science, not politics or ego, that will drive their decisions. They know the health of our people goes hand in hand with the strength of our economy. They know action begets action. Over the past few months, we've learned what's essential, rising to the challenge, not denying it. We've learned who is essential too, not just the wealthiest among us, not a president who fights his fellow Americans rather than fight the virus that's killing us and our economy. It's the people who put their own health at risk to care for the rest of us. They are the MVPs. The nurses and the doctors, the utility workers, truck drivers, and grocery clerks, the child care workers, the parents, the teachers, the mail carriers, and the auto workers. So many of these essential workers have lost their lives to COVID. Nearly 1,000 healthcare workers, more than 170,000 people across America, including a 5-year-old girl named Skylar from Detroit, whose mom is a police officer and dad is a firefighter. generation after generation, our nation has been defined by what we do or what we fail to do. So, for Skylar, for her parents, and in the memory of all those we've lost, let us act. Let us heal as one nation. Let us find strength to do the work.
I've been down this road before. I remember every tree, every single blade of grass holds a special place for me. And I remember every town and every hotel room, and every song I ever sang on a guitar out of tune. And I remember every night your ocean eyes of blue, how I miss you in the morning light, like roses miss the dew.
We, the people, means all the people, even those with whom we might not agree, even those we might not expect to see at a Democratic convention. But Joe Biden is a guy who has earned the respect he commands across the world and across the aisle. The stakes in this election call for that kind of leadership. We have to think about more than one party. We have to think about the very core of our democracy. And that's why you're about to hear from some unexpected voices.
I'm Governor Christine Todd Whitman. What am I doing here? I'm a lifelong Republican. My parents were introduced at a Republican National Convention by their parents. That's how far back it goes. But this isn't about a Republican or Democrat. It's about a person decent enough, stable enough, strong enough to get our economy back on track. A person who can work with everyone, Democrats and Republicans, to get things done. Donald Trump isn't that person. Joe Biden is.
I'm Meg Whitman. I'm a longtime Republican and a longtime CEO. And let me tell you, Donald Trump has no clue how to run a business, let alone an economy. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has a plan that will strengthen our economy for working people and small business owners. For me, the choice is simple. I'm with Joe.
Hi, I'm Susan Molinari. I'm a former Republican member of Congress from New York City, and I've known Donald Trump for most of my political career. So disappointing, and lately so disturbing. Now, I've also gotten to know and work with Joe Biden on issues related to women that are so important to all of us. Women in business, violence against women. That's why I'm so proud to call him my friend and honored to join in supporting his candidacy for president. He's a really good man, and he's exactly what this nation needs at this time. Now, I'm delighted and honored to introduce a former colleague of mine, the former congressman from Ohio, the former governor of Ohio, John Kasich.
America is at a crossroads. Sometimes elections represent a real choice, a choice we make as individuals and as a nation about which path we want to take when we've come to challenging times. America is at that crossroads today. The stakes in this election are greater than any in modern times. Many of us have been deeply concerned about the current path we've been following for the past 4 years. It's a path that's led to division, dysfunction, irresponsibility, and growing vitriol between our citizens. Continuing to follow that path will have terrible consequences for America's soul because we're being taken down the wrong road by a president who is pitted one against the other. He's unlike all of our best leaders before him who worked to unite us, to bridge our differences, and lead us to a united America. I'm a lifelong Republican, but that attachment holds second place to my responsibility to my country. That's why I've chosen to appear at this convention. In normal times, something like this would probably never happen, but these are not normal times. I'm proud of my Republican heritage. It's the party of Lincoln, who reflected its founding principles of unity and a higher purpose. But what I have witnessed these past 4 years belies those principles. Many of us can't imagine 4 more years going down this path. And that's why I'm asking you to join with me in choosing a better way forward. I believe the best of America lies ahead, but only when we rediscovered our shared belief in the United States of America for our children's future, which can be bright, hopeful, and inspired if we choose to make it so. I've known Joe Biden for 30 years. I know his story of profound grief that has so deeply affected his character. I know Joe is a good man, a man of faith, a unifier, someone who understands the hopes and dreams of the common man and the common woman, a man who can help us to see the humanity in each other. He knows that the path to a restored and rejuvenated America lies in respect and unity and a common purpose for everyone. Yes, there are areas where Joe and I absolutely disagree, but that's okay, because that's America. Because whatever our differences, we respect one another as human beings, each of us searching for justice and for purpose. We can all see what's going on in our country today and all the questions that are facing us, and no one person or party has all the answers. But what we do know is that we can do better than what we've been seeing today, for sure. And I know that Joe Biden, with his experience and his wisdom and his decency, can bring us together to help us find that better way. I'm sure there are Republicans and independents who couldn't imagine crossing over to support a Democrat. They fear Joe may turn sharp left and leave them behind. I don't believe that, because I know the measure of the man. It's reasonable, faithful, respectful. And you know, no one pushes Joe around. Joe Biden is a man for our times, times that call for all of us to take off our partisan hats and put our nation first for ourselves and, of course, for our children. When America chooses the right path and pulls together, like we've done so many times before, we can dream big dreams, and we can see the top of the mountain as a United States of America with a soul that is a beacon of freedom to the entire world.
Hello, my name is Terry Williams, and I've been a Republican for all of my adult life.
A lifelong Republican.
Republican.
A lifelong Republican.
I've been a long-standing Republican, and I'm telling you, you got to vote for Joe Biden.
I have voted for and campaigned for Republicans since the Reagan years, but I won't be voting for Donald Trump in November.
I'm supporting Joe Biden for president.
We need a positive leader, someone who can work with both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats.
I don't think we can deal with the type of person we have in the White House any longer.
Vote America. That's the only way to get out of this. And Joe Biden is just the person to ensure we get our lives back to normal.
Joe Biden is a decent man with a long history of public service to America.
He will restore order and integrity to the executive branch.
I would strongly encourage all of us to come together
and hopefully return our country's political discourse back to some measure of normalcy and decency.
I'm absolutely sure he's going to help us bring this country together once again.
And now, from Alabama, Senator Doug Jones.
I'm Senator Doug Jones from the great state of Alabama. Growing up in the South meant growing up in the midst of stark divisions. But it was here in Alabama where Rosa Parks helped ignite a movement by refusing to give up her seat on a bus, where freedom riders of different races came together in pursuit of equality. And it was here in Alabama where John Lewis marched across a bridge toward freedom. From a young age, I knew the hope that comes from seeing good people work to heal our divisions. It's what led me to become the United States Attorney, where I convicted 2 Klansmen who murdered 4 young black girls in a 1963 Birmingham church bombing and delivered long overdue justice. I'm standing in front of an exhibit dedicated to their memory. Alabama has shown me that even our deepest divisions can be overcome because each of us want the same thing, to be treated fairly and given the same opportunities and the freedom to live with dignity and respect. Now, some politicians try to pit us against each other, but I believe that Americans have more in common than what divides us. And in November, we have a chance to elect a president who believes that too. I've known Joe for more than 40 years. I met him as a wide-eyed law student, and he's been my friend and champion ever since. The Joe I know is exactly the leader our country needs right now. He can bring people together to find common ground while standing up for what he believes is right. After years of bitter partisanship, he can unite our country and get things done for working families and everyone looking for a better future. Because it's not about what side of the aisle we're on, it's about whether or not we're on the side of the people. The great John Lewis would often quote the old African proverb, "When you pray, move your feet," and then challenge us to do just that. As a nation, he said, if we care for the beloved community, we must move our feet, our hands, our resources to build and not tear down, to reconcile and not to divide, to love and not to hate, to heal and not to kill. In the final analysis, we are one people, one family, one house, the American family. Vice President Biden understands that, and he is who we need as our next president.
Here we are on a Monday night in 2020, and we need to talk about the post office, the U.S. Postal Service. It is central to so much of our lives. Veterans count on the post office to get their prescriptions. Social Security beneficiaries count on the post office to get their checks. Grandparents depend on the post office to send birthday cards to their grandkids. Small businesses need the post office to do business. And guess what? The post office is also one of the ways we cast our votes. To find out how to exercise that right this November, whether by mail or in person, text VOTE, V-O-T-E, to 30330. And here to say more is the first Latina elected to the United States Senate, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto.
Hello, I'm Senator Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada. This year, more Americans than ever before are going to vote from rooms just like this, marking their ballots at the kitchen table and exercising one of our most fundamental rights from home. But despite what the president says, voting by mail has been a secure, proven option for decades. In 2016, 33 million Americans voted by mail. Even Donald Trump has requested an absentee ballot twice this year. This fall, some Americans will choose to vote in a voting booth with a mask on, while many of us will choose to vote by mail. My home state took the advice of scientists and medical experts and listened to the people of Nevada to put in place a vote-by-mail system, so voters have a lot of options this fall. But Donald Trump is trying to divide us by undermining that right. He has threatened to withhold federal funding to Nevada because of our vote-by-mail system. That's funding our schools and seniors rely on. He has challenged us in court with a meritless lawsuit, one that our Republican Secretary of State has asked the judge to dismiss. And now he is putting the lives of Nevada's seniors at risk by trying to defund the post office. Here's what that means. Seniors won't be able to get their prescriptions because he wants to win an election. Well, Mr. President, Nevada is not intimidated by you. America is not intimidated by you. We are united by shared values, shared history, and shared rights, including our fundamental right to vote. And this fall, we will send Joe Biden to the White House and we'll flip the U.S. Senate. With Mitch McConnell out of power and a Democratic majority in the Senate, we will expand voting access and protect voting rights. To do this, America, we need you on our side. So go to joebiden.com right now to chip in, and then head over to flipthesenate.com to help us take back the Senate. Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell know how to divide, but we know how to stand together and turn this country around.
This year we had an historic field of presidential candidates, an historic number of women, including our vice presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, more candidates of color than any primary ever, and the first openly gay man to win a caucus. This party, the Democratic Party, welcomes everyone, encourages everyone to lead, and invites everyone's ideas to ensure this country builds back better. This is what our next speaker believes too. Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Okay. Hello, America. Like my friend Catherine, I believe that the right to vote is fundamental and the post office is essential. You know, the president may hate the post office, but he's still going to have to send them a change of address card come January. Donald Trump just happens to be in my state today, trying to divide people instead of responding to the pandemic and the significant needs of our economy. But Democrats, independents, and yes, many Republicans have had enough of his divisiveness. Tonight, my friends, in contrast, we've heard a lot about how we can unite as Americans, about our shared values, our shared dreams, how we've come together in the face of crisis. But I want to be clear. Unity isn't about settling. It's about striving for something more. It isn't the end, it's the means. It's how we get stuff done. Unity is about reaching up toward a higher purpose, a better future for all of us. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. It is more than a motto. It is the North Star for our democracy. Now more than ever, we need a president who will unite this country. We need a president who, in George Floyd's memory, instead of using the Bible as a prop, will heed its words, to act justly. We need a president for the workers who've lost their jobs because this administration is selling American workers out when we need to buy American. For the farmers and manufacturers and the people of rural America who are sick and tired of reaping what he's sown. We need a president who will look out for the seniors like my dad, whose families now visit them through glass windows, never knowing if it will be the last time they see them. We need a president for all of America. I come from the middle of this country where we believe in people joining together to solve problems. We seek common ground to reach higher ground. That's been Joe Biden's life's work. He's a man of scrappy, working-class roots, a man whose own hardships have only made him more determined to lift up those who have been left out. He understands redemption, and he knows resilience. Joe Biden's a man of deep experience. Barack Obama, better known tonight as Michelle's husband, he leaned on Joe for his strength and decency, and you can too. You know, most candidates, when they end their campaign, that day is a hard one. For me, it was a moment filled with great joy, because the day I ended my presidential campaign was also the day I endorsed Joe Biden. Joe ran for the same reasons I did when I announced my campaign in the middle of that blizzard on the banks of the Mississippi River. To cross the river of our divides, to bring this nation together, to be a president for all of America. As I said the day I endorsed him, if you feel stuck in the middle of the extremes in our politics, if you are tired of the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me, and you have a home with Joe Biden. That's why I was so proud to stand with him then and across this great country. That's why we are all now standing united behind Joe and my friend Kamala. Our nation's motto is out of many, one. And as you're about to see, it's also the story of the Democratic primary. Thank you, America.
We all ran for president, motivated by the same reasons.
As I watched President Trump divide this country more and more, I thought to myself, what are you willing to do to stop him?
You had the most destructive, hateful, racist president in the history of this country, who is literally tearing apart the fabric of the United States of America.
Donald Trump is a failed business person and desperately failed us as a president.
I ran for president because I think it's urgent that we heal the divisions in this nation.
We are still in control
control of our own future.
And we need to provide millions of Americans a real path forward.
A green jobs program.
Increasing the minimum wage.
Passing a national paid leave bill.
Student loan debt.
Mental health, starting with our veterans.
Reproductive justice.
Economic justice.
Racial justice.
And there is so much a new president can do to bring us together.
It's time to get up. Get up.
Starting a presidential campaign is daunting. I mean, you have to reach hundreds of millions of people.
You have these incredibly long days, often capped off by these evening events that go on for hours and hours.
Your challenge as a candidate is to be true to yourself and true to why you ran in the first place. That is something, by the way, that I really admire about Joe Biden. He really is his own man. He knows who he is.
Joe Biden is somebody who deeply cares about people who are marginalized, who are being left behind, who are being ignored.
I'm a DACA recipient, and I owe you everything. Thank you so much.
And you're staying, man.
You know, he's had some hard times in his life. He's had some losses in his life. And I think that is something that people relate to.
You doing okay?
Yep, close to 15 years cancer-free.
God love you.
Well, I was at a service for 4 fallen Afghanistan soldiers, and I saw those families who were so comforted by Joe Biden. When they walked out, they knew someone cared for them. Someone could relate to their own pain they were having. We need that in the White House.
I still remember standing side by side with him on the debate stage, and we were having a go of it. But what was remarkable to me was in the commercial break, he puts his arm around me and starts telling me how good my ideas are. And next thing you know, I feel like he's giving me a pep talk and literally telling me how important it is, how really important it is that I'm on that stage.
Joe called me the night I suspended and was extraordinarily gracious and comforting, and he told me I should be proud of myself, said that I did myself and my family a real service and the country a service, and that meant a lot coming from Joe.
Look, it's not easy to unite the Democratic Party. We're a rambunctious group. Joe Biden has pulled it off.
He wants to get the best ideas on the table so we can move forward in the best way possible.
He's included my family Bill of Rights.
He has unified our group around a clean energy strategy.
The Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, I'm very excited that that's in there.
He's the kind of leader that brings other leaders in.
This is a guy that's going to walk into the Oval Office and not have to find his way around, but it will actually walk in and have already sort of honed the instincts you need to lead the most powerful nation on earth through a crisis.
On the other side, Donald Trump does not understand who we are as Americans. He really doesn't.
This is a guy that blames everyone for everything. You know, he blames the city of Baltimore. He blames the country of Denmark. He blames the Prime Minister of Canada for cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Who does that?
There are no sidelines. There's no sitting this one out. There's no hoping that someone else is going to come in and save the day. There is no cavalry. We are the cavalry.
The moment has found the person. That person is Joe Biden.
Joe has my vote because he will bring decency and dignity back to the White House.
We've got one shot to make Donald Trump a one-term president, and that shot is right now.
It's showtime! It's showtime!
Ex-president, right here.
We understand that things are tough right now economically, but if we're going to beat Donald Trump in November, we need your help. If you're able to go to joebiden.com and chip in $5, $10, whatever you can, to fund the change we need to save our democracy, because every bit matters, and it's going to take all of us to make this happen. And no one knows that more than our next speaker, the Biden-Harris campaign's co-chair, Representative Cedric Richmond from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Think about the places that make your neighborhood feel like home. The barbershop, where you can catch up on the latest neighborhood news while you get your hair cut. The restaurant, where they know your order by heart. Or this art studio, where a creative guy with a great idea and a ton of hustle turned an abandoned building into a second home for the entire community. You know, economists will tell you that small businesses like this one are critically important to our recovery. But they're also just plain important. Without them, the places we call home just wouldn't be the same. That's the thing Joe Biden understands that Donald Trump never has and never will. When we talk about the economy, it's not just about the stock market. It's about whether you can find work that really means something to you, instead of feeling like you're supposed to be grateful just to get a paycheck. It's about whether people who didn't inherit millions from their parents can build a business from the ground up and have a real chance to compete. And it's about whether in the richest country on earth, everyone, including women and people of color, feel included and empowered. Economists will also tell you that Joe Biden's plan to rebuild our economy will create millions of jobs. But Joe will tell you that his plan is about more than that, because he's seen the world from a different perspective than most politicians. He knows what it's like to live in a real neighborhood, not just penthouse apartments. He knows what it's like to take the train to work, not just a chauffeured limousine. That's why he looks at our economic challenges the same way working people do. And he'll solve them in a way that puts working people first. Joe Biden respects America's workers because he truly understands the dignity of work.
You know, it was mostly small talk when we first met. When I would collect his ticket, and as time went on, I learned more and more about him as our friendship grew. I think he's most comfortable around everyday working class people. He just always makes you feel like you belong.
For more than 30 years, Joe Biden took the train to work. As a single dad, he promised to be home to kiss the boys every night and then make them breakfast in the morning.
When he got on the train, everyone seemed equal to him. He had time for everybody.
Joe was a regular. He bought rounds of coffee for fellow passengers and crew, and he got to know the people he traveled with.
These guys broke their necks. They're always rocking, keeping their balance, collecting tickets, help people with their bags that are heavy as hell. And they're doing this for hours. And we became really good friends.
He was very interested in my life, my children. As time went on, my grandchildren. People don't do that today. People don't even take time out to say hello or nod their head to the average working person. They looked at us like we were important people.
He would treat the conductor the same as he would the President of the United States. That is what Dad taught us, that everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect.
After Joe became vice president, he cut down on his commute, but he kept in touch. When Greg Weaver had a heart attack, he got a phone call.
I was in a barber shop in New York City, and the phone rings. And sure enough, it was Vice President Biden asking me how I'm doing. He wanted to know the whole story. It's kind of funny that you're talking to the Vice President of the United States, but if I would have told that people in the barbershop, I don't think they would have believed me. I'm not saying it like it was me and I was anything special. Everybody was special to him. We have heroes all over this country, and a lot of the essential workers out there that we don't even see that are behind the scenes are keeping this country going. He understands that. The average guy is important to him. The average guy is important to him.
Good evening. Our great nation is now living in an unprecedented moment. We're facing the worst public health crisis in 100 years and the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression. We are confronting systemic racism and the enormous threat to our planet of climate change. And in the midst of all of this, we have a president who is not only incapable of addressing these crises, but is leading us down the path of authoritarianism. This election is the most important in the modern history of this country. In response to the unprecedented crises we face, we need an unprecedented response, a movement like never before, of people who are prepared to stand up and fight for democracy and decency and against greed, oligarchy, and bigotry. And we need Joe Biden as our next president. Let me take this opportunity to say a word to the millions of people who supported my campaign this year and in 2016. My friends, thank you for your trust, your support, and the love you showed Jane, me, and our family. Together, we have moved this country in a bold new direction, showing that all of us, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, native-born and immigrant, yearn for a nation based on the principles of justice, love, and compassion. Our campaign ended several months ago, but our movement continues and is getting stronger every day. Many of the ideas we fought for that just a few years ago were considered radical are now mainstream. But let us be clear, if Donald Trump is reelected, all the progress we have made will be in jeopardy. At its most basic, this election is about preserving our democracy. During this president's term, the unthinkable has become normal. He has tried to prevent people from voting, undermined the U.S. Postal Service, deployed the military and federal agents against peaceful protesters, threatened to delay the election, and suggested that he will not leave office if he loses. This is not normal, and we must never treat it like it is. Under this administration, authoritarianism has taken root in our country. I and my family, and many of yours, know the insidious way authoritarianism destroys democracy, decency, and humanity. As long as I am here, I will work with progressives, with moderates, and yes, with conservatives to preserve this nation from a threat that so many of our heroes fought and died to defeat. This president is not just a threat to our democracy, but by rejecting science, he has put our lives and health in jeopardy. Trump has attacked doctors and scientists trying to protect us from the pandemic, while refusing to take strong action to produce the masks, gowns, and gloves our healthcare workers desperately need. Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Trump golfs. His actions fanned this pandemic, resulting in over 170,000 deaths and a nation still unprepared to protect its people. Furthermore, Trump's negligence has exacerbated the economic crisis we are now experiencing. Since this pandemic began, over 30 million people have lost their jobs, and many have lost their health insurance. Millions of working families are wondering how they will feed their kids, and they're worried that they will be evicted from their homes. And how has Trump responded? Instead of maintaining the $600 a week unemployment supplement that workers were receiving and the $1,200 emergency checks that many of you received, instead of helping small businesses, Trump concocted fraudulent executive orders that do virtually nothing to address the crisis while threatening the very future of Social Security and Medicare. But the truth is that even before Trump's negligent response to this pandemic, too many hardworking families have been caught on an economic treadmill with no hope of ever getting ahead. Together, we must build a nation that is more equitable, more compassionate, and more inclusive. I know that Joe Biden will begin that fight on day one. Let me offer you just a few examples of how Joe will move us forward. Joe supports raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This will give 40 million workers a pay raise and push the wage scale up for everyone else. Joe will also make it easier for workers to join unions, create 12 weeks of paid family leave, fund universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds, and make child care affordable for millions of families. Joe will rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and fight the threat of climate change by transitioning us to 100% clean electricity over the next 15 years. These initiatives will create millions of good-paying jobs all across our country. As you know, we are the only industrialized nation not to guarantee health care for all people. While Joe and I disagree on the best path to get universal coverage, he has a plan that will greatly expand health care and cut the cost of prescription drugs. Further, he will lower the eligibility age of Medicare from 65 down to 60. To help reform our broken criminal justice system, Joe will end private prisons and detention centers, cash bail, and the school-to-prison pipeline. And to heal the soul of our nation, Joe Biden will end the hate and division Trump has created. He will stop the demonization of immigrants, the coddling of white nationalists, the racist dog whistling, the religious bigotry, and the ugly attacks on women. My friends, I say to you, to everyone who supported other candidates in the primary, and to those who may have voted for Donald Trump in the last election, the future of our democracy is at stake. The future of our economy is at stake. The future of our planet is at stake. We must come together, defeat Donald Trump, and elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as our next president and vice president. My friends, the price of failure is just too great to imagine. Thank you.
My American dream is to have an America where we have people in affordable housing.
But for every human being in this country to have access to quality health care and economic means to care for themselves and families.
Access to a quality and equitable education.
A system of government that protects the workers and their families.
Joe Biden, throughout his career, has focused on rebuilding the middle class.
We need a leader that actually supports our unions for our hardworking people.
Real leadership to show genuine support for small businesses during this downturn due to the COVID crisis.
I believe Joe Biden has the experience, the platform, and the empathy to build America back better.
He wants good things for all Americans, not just a select few.
The voices we long to hear right now are the ones that speak with courage and kindness, strength and wisdom, love and compassion. They're unafraid to speak the truth and talk about their own uncertainties and struggles. They make us feel seen and inspire us to become the best versions of ourselves. Our next speaker is that for all of us. It is my honor and privilege to introduce the former First Lady, Michelle Obama.
Good evening, everyone. It's a hard time, and everyone's feeling it in different ways. And I know a lot of folks are reluctant to tune into a political convention right now, or to politics in general. Believe me, I get that. But I am here tonight because I love this country with all my heart. And it pains me to see so many people hurting. I've met so many of you. I've heard your stories. And through you, I have seen this country's promise. And thanks to so many who came before me, thanks to their toil and sweat and blood, I've been able to live that promise myself. That's the story of America. All those folks who sacrificed and overcame so much in their own times because they wanted something more, something better for their kids. There's a lot of beauty in that story. There's a lot of pain in it too. A lot of struggle and injustice and work left to do. And who we choose as our president in this election will determine whether or not we honor that struggle and chip away at that injustice and keep alive the very possibility of finishing that work. I am one of a handful of people living today who have seen firsthand the immense weight and awesome power of the presidency. And let me once again tell you this: the job is hard. It requires clear-headed judgment, a mastery of complex and competing issues, a devotion to facts and history, a moral compass, and an ability to listen, and an abiding belief that each of the 330 million lives in this country has meaning and worth. A president's words have the power to move markets. They can start wars or broker peace. They can summon our better angels or awaken our worst instincts. You simply cannot fake your way through this job. As I've said before, being president doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are. Well, a presidential election can reveal who we are too. And 4 years ago, too many people chose to believe that their votes didn't matter. Maybe they were fed up. Maybe they thought the outcome wouldn't be close. Maybe the barriers felt too steep, whatever the reason. In the end, those choices sent someone to the Oval Office who lost the national popular vote by nearly 3 million votes. In one of the states that determined the outcome, the winning margin averaged out to just 2 votes per precinct. 2 votes. And we've all been living with the consequences. When my husband left office with Joe Biden at his side, we had a record-breaking stretch of job creation. We'd secured the right to health care for 20 million people. We were respected around the world, rallying our allies to confront climate change. And our leaders had worked hand in hand with scientists to help prevent an Ebola outbreak from becoming a global pandemic. 4 years later, the state of this nation is very different. More than 150,000 people have died, and our economy is in shambles because of a virus that this president downplayed for too long. It has left millions of people jobless. Too many have lost their health care. Too many are struggling to take care of basic necessities like food and rent. Too many communities have been left in the lurch to grapple with whether and how to open our schools safely. Internationally, we've turned our back, not just on agreements forged by my husband, but on alliances championed by presidents like Reagan and Eisenhower. And here at home, as George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and a never-ending list of innocent people of color continue to be murdered, stating the simple fact that a Black life matters is still met with derision from the nation's highest office. Because whenever we look to this White House for some leadership or consolation or any semblance of steadiness, what we get instead is chaos, division, and a total and utter lack of empathy. Empathy, that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. the ability to walk in someone else's shoes, the recognition that someone else's experience has value too. Most of us practice this without a second thought. If we see someone suffering or struggling, we don't stand in judgment, we reach out, because there, but for the grace of God, go I. It is not a hard concept to grasp. It's what we teach our children. And like so many of you, Barack and I have tried our best to instill in our girls a strong moral foundation to carry forward the values that our parents and grandparents poured into us. But right now, kids in this country are seeing what happens when we stop requiring empathy of one another. They're looking around wondering if we've been lying to them this whole time about who we are and what we truly value. They see people shouting in grocery stores, unwilling to wear a mask to keep us all safe. They see people calling the police on folks minding their own business just because of the color of their skin. They see an entitlement that says only certain people belong here, that greed is good and winning is everything, because as long as you come out on top, it doesn't matter what happens to everyone else. And they see what happens when that lack of empathy is ginned up into outright disdain. They see our leaders labeling fellow citizens enemies of the state while emboldening torch-bearing white supremacists. They watch in horror as children are torn from their families and thrown into cages, and pepper spray and rubber bullets are used on peaceful protesters for a photo op. Sadly, this is the America that is on display for the next generation. A nation that's underperforming not simply on matters of policy, but on matters of character. And that's not just disappointing, it's downright infuriating. Because I know the goodness and the grace that is out there in households and neighborhoods all across this nation. And I know that regardless of our race, age, religion, or politics, when we close out the noise and the fear and truly open our hearts, we know that what's going on in this country is just not right. This is not who we want to be. So what do we do now? What's our strategy? Over the past 4 years, a lot of people have asked me, when others are going so low, does going high still really work? My answer, going high is the only thing that works. Because when we go low, when we use those same tactics of degrading and dehumanizing others, we just become part of the ugly noise that's drowning out everything else. We degrade ourselves. We degrade the very causes for which we fight. But let's be clear. Going high does not mean putting on a smile and saying nice things when confronted by viciousness and cruelty. Going high means taking the harder path. It means scraping and clawing our way to that mountaintop. Going high means standing fierce against hatred while remembering that we are one nation under God. And if we want to survive, we've got to find a way to live together and work together across our differences. And going high means unlocking the shackles of lies and mistrust with the only thing that can truly set us free, the cold, hard truth. So let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is. Now, I understand that my message won't be heard by some people. We live in a nation that is deeply divided, and I am a Black woman speaking at the Democratic Convention. But enough of you know me by now. You know that I tell you exactly what I'm feeling. You know I hate politics, but you also know that I care about this nation. You know how much I care about all of our children. So if you take one thing from my words tonight, it is this. If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can and they will if we don't make a change in this election. If we have any hope of ending this chaos, we have got to vote for Joe Biden like our lives depend on it. I know Joe. He is a profoundly decent man, guided by faith. He was a terrific vice president. He knows what it takes to rescue an economy, beat back a pandemic, and lead our country. And he listens. He will tell the truth and trust science. He will make smart plans and manage a good team. And he will govern as someone who's lived a life that the rest of us can recognize. When he was a kid, Joe's father lost his job. When he was a young senator, Joe lost his wife and his baby daughter. And when he was vice president, he lost his beloved son. So Joe knows the anguish of sitting at a table with an empty chair, which is why he gives his time so freely to grieving parents. Joe knows what it's like to struggle, which is why he gives his personal phone number to kids overcoming a stutter of their own. His life is a testament to getting back up. And he is going to channel that same grit and passion to pick us all up, to help us heal and guide us forward. Now, Joe is not perfect, and he'd be the first to tell you that. But there is no perfect candidate, no perfect president. And his ability to learn and grow, we find in that the kind of humility and maturity that so many of us yearn for right now. Because Joe Biden has served this nation his entire life without ever losing sight of who he is. But more than that, he has never lost sight of who we are, all of us. Joe Biden wants all of our kids to go to a good school, see a doctor when they're sick, live on a healthy planet. And he's got plans to make all of that happen. Joe Biden wants all of our kids, no matter what they look like, to be able to walk out the door without worrying about being harassed or arrested or killed. He wants all of our kids to be able to go to a movie or a math class without being afraid of getting shot. He wants all our kids to grow up with leaders who won't just serve themselves and their wealthy peers, but will provide a safety net for people facing hard times. And if we want a chance to pursue any of these goals, any of these most basic requirements for a functioning society, we have to vote for Joe Biden in numbers that cannot be ignored. Because right now, folks who know they cannot win fair and square at the ballot box are doing everything they can to stop us from voting. They're closing down polling places in minority neighborhoods. They're purging voter rolls. They're sending people out to intimidate voters, and they're lying about the security of our ballots. These tactics are not new. But this is not the time to withhold our votes in protest or play games with candidates who have no chance of winning. We have got to vote like we did in 2008 and 2012. We've got to show up with the same level of passion and hope for Joe Biden. We've got to vote early, in person if we can. We've got to request our mail-in ballots right now, tonight, and send them back immediately. and follow up to make sure they're received, and then make sure our friends and families do the same. We have got to grab our comfortable shoes, put on our masks, pack a brown bag dinner, and maybe breakfast too, because we've got to be willing to stand in line all night if we have to. Look, we have already sacrificed so much this year. So many of you are already going that extra mile. Even when you're exhausted, you're mustering up unimaginable courage to put on those scrubs and give our loved ones a fighting chance. Even when you're anxious, you're delivering those packages, stocking those shelves, and doing all that essential work so that all of us can keep moving forward. Even when it all feels so overwhelming, working parents are somehow piecing it all together without childcare. Teachers are getting creative so that our kids can still learn and grow. Our young people are desperately fighting to pursue their dreams. And when the horrors of systemic racism shook our country and our consciences, millions of Americans of every age, every background rose up to march for each other, crying out for justice and progress. This is who we still are. Compassionate, resilient, decent people whose fortunes are bound up with one another. And it is well past time for our leaders to once again reflect our truth. So it is up to us to add our voices and our votes to the chorus of history, echoing heroes like John Lewis, who said, "When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something." That is the truest form of empathy. Not just feeling, but doing. Not just for ourselves or our kids, but for everyone, for all our kids. And if we want to keep the possibility of progress alive in our time, if we want to be able to look our children in the eye after this election, we have got to reassert our place in American history. And we have got to do everything we can to elect my friend Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. Thank you all. God bless.
Wow. Thank you, Michelle Obama. You are what we miss in this country. We need more of that example. Thank you so much for being part of this unconventional convention. Thanks to all of y'all who have been tuning in. It's a convention about you and for you, the American people. This is our chance to hear from those who will be leading us out of our nation, out of the current crises on the economy, the pandemic, racial injustice, to listen and to learn about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's plans to bring about changes we all need. This is our chance to unite across America. In addition, we'll call the roll and we'll hear from the future First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. I want to thank you again for joining us. Join us the rest of the week. This is your convention. This is your campaign. And we, the people, are going to save this democracy in November. Right now, Billy Porter and Stephen Stills are going to remind us what it's all worth. Good night.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
We the people call the 48th Quadrennial Democratic National Convention to order.
Today, we gather virtually. However, we gather unified in spirit, unified in our values and purpose.
It's up to us to carry on the fight for justice. Our actions will be their legacies.
You just got to keep pushing. You can't let up.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will lead by example. It'll be science, not politics or ego, that will drive their decisions. They know the health of our people goes hand in hand with the strength of our economy.
My dad was a healthy 65-year-old. His only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump, and for that, he paid with his life.
The future of our democracy is at stake. The future of our economy is at stake. The future of our planet is at stake.
If we want to be able to look our children in the eye after this election, we have got to reassert our place in American history. And we have got to do everything we can to elect my friend Joe Biden as the next president of the United States.
Hello, I am Pastor Jerry Young. Let us pray together. Almighty God, we are grateful to you for having granted to our nation the democratic ideal by which our destiny may be fashioned. We are thankful to you for having blessed these United States of America to survive the climate of confusion and chaos, racism and injustice, uncertainty, helplessness, and irresponsibility. We now, O Lord, invoke your presence and participation throughout the life of this convention. It is our prayer that you will enable this convention to produce a vision that will promote healing, hope, and health for our nation. A vision that will inspire, inform, and be inclusive of all Americans. A vision that will rekindle in us a renewed commitment to the high ideal of our democracy, that we are created equal and are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We would pray that you would grant to those to whom we will entrust with the authority of government to be competent, compassionate, courageous, committed, and consecrated, and guide us, the people, to support them in all good and wise legislation, that we all may prosper under an equal law, defend our liberties, and grant us a sense of our own responsibility. Achieve unity of purpose among us, and grant unto us the victory of faith and freedom in the ideas to which we are committed as a nation. Strengthen us with honor and grant us peace. Provide us, O God, with the strength and spiritual sustenance to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. In the strong name of Jesus, amen.
Delegates and distinguished guests, we've concluded this evening's convention program. The convention will stand in recess until tomorrow evening.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us on News Now from Fox. I'm Stephanie Weaver. That wrapped up the Democratic National Convention Day 1. It kicked off Monday evening, and it was the first night of an almost all virtual event featuring speakers including Michelle Obama, Senator Bernie Sanders, former Ohio Governor John Kasich, and New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, John Kasich, a former Republican governor of Ohio, encouraged Republicans and independents to throw their support behind Biden. Now, tomorrow, we can expect to hear from Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, former Secretary of State John Kerry, former President Bill Clinton, and Joe Biden's wife and former Second Lady of the United States, Dr. Jill Biden. Presumptive nominee Joe Biden's pick for Vice President, Senator Kamala Harris of California, is expected to speak Wednesday night, along with former President Barack Obama. Joe Biden, the former vice president, will not be delivering remarks until Thursday night, but he did make an appearance in tonight's event, moderating a panel on racial justice. Themes discussed included the pandemic, racial injustice, and the U.S. Postal Service. This first-time virtual affair was the first without a central meeting place or cheering crowds. Republicans will face a similar challenge next week. President Trump said today during remarks in Wisconsin that he will deliver his remarks from the White House next week. So thank you for joining us, everyone, on News Now from Fox. Again, you were just watching the Democratic National Convention, which kicked off this evening, and it was the first night of an almost all virtual event, an unconventional convention. Speakers including Michelle Obama, Senator Bernie Sanders, former Ohio Governor John Kasich, and New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. And again, tomorrow we can expect to hear from Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, former Secretary of State John Kerry, former President Bill Clinton, and former Second Lady of the United States and Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill Biden. And of course, we will continue to provide you coverage tomorrow. Again, same place, same time on News Now from Fox, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow evening. Now, earlier today, Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker discussed new coronavirus restrictions in Illinois, a region currently seeing a spike in cases. I'm going to wrap that up for you. Thank you for joining us on News Now from Fox. Hope you're having a great evening with us.
Stop at the edge of a region or a county. And that's why we are trying to help citizens of residents of Illinois make the best decisions they can. So we are launching a COVID-19 travel map. And on this travel map, you can look at it and residents can try to identify where there are higher risk of contracting COVID-19 versus others. We know that people may have to travel, but potentially based on where you may go, that travel may increase your risk of exposure to COVID-19 by putting you in contact with people who have a higher chance of having the virus. So as you move, whether it's by bus or by train or by airport, think about the entire trip, not just the final destination, but how will you get safely to the bus terminal or the airport? How will you move through the train terminal or the airport terminal? How will you handle the check-in and the security? Think about all of that and how to be as safe as possible when you're planning your travel. If you're going by car, think about as you're stopping for gas and food, you also want to think about, oh, what are the rates in this area, so that you can just make sure you're extremely cautious as you stop for whatever you need to do. So the IDPH travel map will easily show you the states where the average daily case rate is above 15 cases per 100,000 population, and we designate that as higher risk. So if you are opportune to be taking a vacation, or you're able to get a couple of days away and you have some choice in the matter, please take a look at this map. It's some simple guidance. Maybe it will help you make a choice to pick one location over another. This can help you decide. We know that travel can't always be avoided. You might be crossing the border every day to go to work. You might have family just on the other side of the border. You may have a family matter that you have to go to one of these, quote, hot states. I just want you to know what's going on in the place that you're going to and make the best choices for yourself and take all the necessary precautions. And those precautions, no matter where you're going, what you're doing, are the same 3 W's. Washing your hands frequently or using hand sanitizer, watching your distance, maintaining that 6 feet of distance, and of course, wearing face coverings. In these times, it's important to know all that we can do, and it seems simple, but it really can work. We want to help each other avoid becoming infected. When possible, you have to keep the distance with the mask, and even if you're standing in lines, try to maintain that distance. So whether you're traveling to another country, another state, another county, or even staying right at home in your area, it's important that we keep doing what we know will work. This is how we're going to reduce the spread of this virus, and this is how we're going to get back to where we were. And now for our Spanish-speaking population, comenzaré con lo que estamos viendo en todo el estado. Hoy informamos que 1,740 pacientes estaban en la unidad de cuidados intensivos del estado y especialmente a los fronterizos. Puede ayudar a para manos.
Thank you, Doctor. So I would like to thank Governor Pritzker for being here today, and Dr. Ezike, thank you for your dedication. In fact, they've been here so much during these late times that we may have to consider getting Governor Pritzker a census form to fill out, because he is always here. But make no mistake, the governor isn't here because he wants to be here. It's because this region has gone over the positivity rate of 8% for the past 3 days, and according to our calculations, we're over today also. And we don't see that going down anytime in the very near future. And so it's important then that we listen to the restrictions that the Illinois Department of Public Health had put forward, that the governor's office has talked about today, and that we act on those. Elizabeth Patton-Whiteside stood here and said all the great words. She represents the East Side Health District, and what she said is absolutely true. And Liz backs that up. So we had a club that was a bad actor. They were doing all the wrong things. And Elizabeth came forward, worked with the St. Clair County Sheriff's Department, worked with our state's attorney, and she gained compliance. That's really what it's all about. There's nobody here that wants to close a business. What we want to do is protect the citizens and make sure that the spread of COVID is arrested so that we can all go back to our normal lives, so that we don't have a significant spread in our community. That's why we see Team St. Clair, that's what I call them, standing behind us today, helping with this. All of our elected officials, everybody's out there trying to get the word out. The media has been very good at that also, and we appreciate their presence here today. Let's get the word out. Let's stop the spread. Let's wash our hands. Let's wear those masks, and let's watch the distance. Thank you.
All right, next up, I want to introduce Mayor Robert Eastern, who probably knows better than anyone here that COVID-19 is dangerous and something that can catch you unaware. And so, Mayor Eastern, thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Robert Eastern III of the City of East St. Louis. And Governor, you're correct. I contracted COVID-19. I was diagnosed as positive on July the 13th. I was okay, feeling-wise. That Wednesday, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I never felt that bad in my life. I was scared, not knowing what the outcome may be. So, upon from that, I missed you when you was here on, I think he was there this week, that week that I contracted COVID-19 in the south end of the city. And it kept me away from my duties as mayor. And I started thinking about the things that we can do and the things that we haven't done and the people that it had affected. So once I got back on my feet, I, along with our city council, and I see Councilman Dancy is here, and we appreciate your support, and as all the other councilmen, as of Thursday, August the 13th, the city passed a new ordinance regarding face coverings. All persons within the municipality boundary of the city engaging in any activity outside of a private residence shall wear protective face mask covering. For more information on exceptions and enforcement of this ordinance, it can be found on our website at www.cesl.us. We're a close community here in East St. Louis, and when one person is hurting, we all are hurting. This COVID-19 virus can be preventable if we do the necessary things, as everyone stated. We're all impacted. This disease does not care about who you are, what race, what religion, age demographics, or nothing. It will hurt, it will attack you, and you will succumb to it. East St. Louis, I ask you to stay patient and to take proper safety measures so we all can start focusing back on rebuilding our new normal. The JJK Center, as they stated, is still offering free testing from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. Please make sure you get tested regularly. We do not want people to not stop getting tested. That's the key. We have to get tested. And those individuals that have tested positive continue to get tested so that we won't pass that on to someone else. I stayed in the house a week and a half after they told me that I was off of quarantine, just because I wanted to make sure that I was safe and keeping those around me safe. I could not do the things that we're doing down at the city to try to keep people safe without the support of my council. And I just want to say, as I experienced COVID-19, we had a council person who experienced COVID-19 as well by losing a loved one that succumbed to this virus. We need you to buy in. It's all in Illinois with the mask. We support the governor and everything that he does, and we appreciate him. We cannot do this about the numbers. We cannot do anything that we do without getting the numbers. What am I talking about? Also, we need to, and I hope I'm not out of line, but I have to say this, is our census. Our census needs to we need to get counted here in the city of East St. Louis, because as we stand here in this East Side Health District, if those numbers are not up, we stand in danger for losing such facilities as this. We need the citizens to buy in to everything that we're doing. Keep yourself safe as it relates to COVID, do your census, and stay safe. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Eastern. And now I'd like to introduce someone he doesn't just carry the title leader, he has been a real leader in Springfield on behalf of the people, not only of his district here, but also across the state of Illinois, and that's Representative Jay Hoffman.
Well, thank you, Governor. I've known you for, I guess, nearly 2 decades, if not more, and I know that this is the last thing that you'd like to do. It's not easy. It's difficult. It's difficult for all of us because what we want to see is reduction in the spread of this virus. And these necessary steps have to be taken in order to address the spike that we're seeing in this region. So on behalf of Senator Belt, Senator Crow, Representative Greenwood, as well as Representative Stewart, we'd like to thank you, Governor, and Dr. Ezike for making the commitment to this region to provide increased testing, to provide mobile testing, to make sure that we in St. Clair County were one of the first counties to begin tracing in a pilot program to trace individuals who were with the person who tested positive. Only through increased testing and tracing are we going to get this under control. So I ask everyone in this region, we have testing available through Southern Illinois Healthcare Foundation, through the mobile units, through the department at Jackie Joyner Kersey, and we're going to continue to provide adequate testing and increased testing so that we can get this under control. Please, please work with all of us, and let's not go back to phase 3. Let's take these precautionary measures now, and then let's go back to where we need to be, and that's phase 4. Thank you again.
Has truly been a partner in so much that we've gotten accomplished for this region and for the entire state. So, Senator Belt.
Good afternoon. It's very unfortunate that we are standing here today for a press conference for something like this. I would much rather not had this press conference today. With protocol being established to Governor Pritzker, Dr. Ezike, and their whole team, I just want to echo the sentiments of Leader Hoffman. You guys have done a phenomenal job in a very difficult situation, which brings me to really what I want to speak about. We can do all the things and say all the things and post the wear your mask or wash your hands or social distance. But it's really up to the community members to do it. We've done our part. And so we have to be really committed to doing this thing together. Now, I want to address some of the emails that I've gotten since we've started this journey in March. To all of my anti-maskers, or to those who believe that this virus is a figment of your imagination, that for those who fail to believe the science behind this pandemic, we need you. Let's find the middle ground and get through this thing together. That's the only way we'll make it. We have to do it together. We can continue to say, wash your hands, wear your mask, and socially distance. We could bring in testing centers. But if we don't have the buy-in, we won't get there. And I understand your belief systems. At the end of the day, you are what you believe, but we have to find the middle ground. And whether it's just to be polite or courteous, let's find the middle ground. Maybe it's not your thing to be polite or courteous. Maybe it's more about the economic rebirth and rebound of Region 4 in the state. Let's get there together. Let's find that middle ground. Let's say, okay, whether or not you believe the science, whether or not you believe what the governor has been saying since day one, do it for your neighbor. Do it if you really believe that the economy needs to rebound and rebirth, because we're going the wrong direction right now. What we're doing isn't working. And so with that being said, I would challenge the state as a whole. I would challenge Region 4 in particular. Let's come together and fight this common foe. It's really not about a philosophical debate about assigning a right or a wrong value to this thing. We don't have that type of time to do that. People are dying as we speak. People are getting infected at an alarming rate and sick as we speak. Let's not do that. Let's put our differences aside. Let's come together, in the words of Dr. King, in the fierce urgency of now, and let's get this thing fixed. And it is my hope, it is my belief that we can do it. It is my hope, it is my belief that in a month, in this very same spot that we're here today, that Governor Pritzker will be here to extol the virtues of Region 4 on reducing our positivity rate to below 6.5 or at 6.5. Region 4, we got work to do, but I know we can do it. Region 4, the state of Illinois, continue to be safe and be well. Thank you.
Happy to take questions from members of the media, but just before I do that, I want to just clarify, first of all, Mayor Eastern, we are so pleased that you recovered so well, and really our prayers were with you the whole time. You know, I reached out to you during that time, and we need you healthy and strong. We're glad you're back. And to Chairman Kern, I love coming here. Now, obviously, there are some subjects I'd rather talk about than others, like the infrastructure that we're building in the area, the investments we're making here in Metro East and St. Clair County, Madison County, and throughout the region. This is not my favorite topic, that is true, but a necessary one nonetheless, and I'll be here anytime I'm needed for the good news or the bad news. So with that, happy to take members of the media questions. Yes.
Was there ever any consideration given to implementing stricter restrictions or bringing back stricter restrictions than the ones we announced yesterday? And will it be enough?
Let me answer the second part of the question first, which is, will it be enough? I don't know. You know, the thing about this virus is it's insidious. I mean, you have to, unfortunately, you put a mitigation in place, and then you really have to watch for 14 days, because that's how long it takes to go from transmitting to somebody, them becoming, them being asymptomatic and then symptomatic, and then, and we'll know whether or not the case rate, the positivity rate is going up or down during that 14 days and really at the 14-day mark. So that's what I would say about the second part of your question. First part is, did we consider other mitigations? Well, as you know, on our website, and as we've talked about for more than a month now, I believe, there are tiers of mitigations. This is just tier 1. And so there are other mitigation strategies that we can put in place. This was the beginning. We want to see whether these will be effective. Trying to match the mitigations around bars and restaurants in St. Louis seemed like the right thing to do. We took guidance from your local public health officials and public health officials throughout this region to try to figure out what's the right thing to do. What we didn't want to have happen was, if we put a more stringent application in place, that we didn't want people to get up and try to drive into St. Louis to go to their bars and restaurants, which would be open later than the bars and restaurants here. So we brought down the time to match theirs in St. Louis. There are others, meetings in a smaller gathering group and so on. But we'll look at other mitigations if we have to. We don't want to. This is, like I said, this is one of my least favorite things to do. I want businesses to thrive. I want people to be free to do what it is that they want to do. But I want to make sure that people are safe and healthy, and that's the design of these mitigations. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Posted on Facebook that people traveling from Illinois to Missouri who let their guard down are putting the Illinois economy at risk. Why is it so much worse in Missouri, in your opinion, and what's your message to people here who have to cross the border?
Look, they had, from the beginning, they had lower levels of mitigations put on in Missouri, and I think that's had an effect on their overall positivity rate, which is higher than that of Illinois. I would remind everybody that across the whole state, if you put the whole state together, we still have a lower positivity rate than all of our neighbors. But we're fast moving in the wrong direction and catching up, unfortunately, with some of our neighbors. And so when I talk about Missouri, the city of St. Louis has done a better job, let's say, and the county of St. Louis has done a better job than some of the surrounding counties in other parts of Missouri. I know that they didn't really have many statewide mitigations put in place. I think we were maybe a little more careful here about how we brought back in Restore Illinois businesses and more activity. And now I'm concerned, frankly, that all this activity has led to an increasing positivity rate. In order for us to avoid stricter mitigations across the state, and even here in this region after this, people really need to wear their mask, and they really need to keep that social distance. If they do that, we can keep this economy going. In fact, we can grow our economy at a faster rate than our surrounding states, because people will see Illinois as it is now as a safer state to be in. Yes, ma'am. I want to get this gentleman after you. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sure. So the question was about the contact tracing program that we began a pilot program actually right here in this area. And remember, the purpose of contact tracing is to make sure that anybody that comes in contact with someone who's tested positive is notified so they can themselves quarantine, isolate for long enough so that they know they didn't contract COVID-19. When we were spinning up the program, we wanted to make sure that we went to places where we thought we had a pretty good base of contact tracing and where we knew that there was a real need. This region we knew had a real need. Lake County up near Chicago had a real need, and so we focused on those two as just the very beginning. Then we were able to put in place a grant program for public health departments all across the state so that we could grow contact tracing. And just so you're aware, we've grown our contact tracing capability from around 500 to over 1,900.
Well, it appears we lost that stream there, but hopefully you're having a great evening. Thank you for joining us on News Now from Fox. We're going to be ending this stream for the night, but we'll be back up early and you can watch us on YouTube and Samsung. So thank you so much for tuning in and have a great night, everyone.